Hey guys, how are all of you beautiful people? Hope you are doing fine, and yes, this is the next part of creating Naruto comics in Naruto world. Where Ikeban was graduated from the University of Arts and Design in the 21st century, then suddenly traversed into the Naruto's world. By bringing my knowledge of arts and my love of Naruto comic, I decided to recreate Naruto comic here. Hope you like the video. Let's start. Why do you have to do the mission again today? I only had a rest yesterday. Ikeban, this is our third day of vacation. Murasaki was a little embarrassed that his friend's laziness was a bit unbearable. Sakumo stood next to Murasaki, resting his arm on his saber. Ikeban took a deep breath, tried to calm himself, and then said, "Is there any good news?" "Yes. I saw the caravan's leader that we saved before bought a cart of your comics today." Murasaki said the good news very honestly. "Kazuma-san, wasn't it? Why would he purchase that much, I wonder?" Ikeban was puzzled. He wouldn't believe that his comic will be sent to another village this fast. "By the way, there is another news." Sakumo interrupted and said, "This time, we will go on a mission together with Team 6. Okay, so?" Ikeban looked at Sakumo with a puzzled look. Seeing his reaction, Sakumo was at a loss, and asked, "We are talking about Tsunade. You two are close friends, right?" "Ooh, shoot. I should feel happy when I see her, right?" Ikeban's sarcastic tone left his teammates with nothing to say. Where did they think that I had some feelings for her? Murasaki was speechless for a while. Suddenly, a sound came from behind. "Ah! And one more, I can't participate in this mission. Is that good news for you?" "Danza." Ikeban had a mini heart attack. "Sensei, you wouldn't accompany us to the Uzumaki village?" Murasaki was surprised. "I, as the leader of Anbu and the third Hokage, decided to combine our team and split the task. He will lead your mission for today, and I will stay in Konoha." "Well then, that's all." Danza sneered and disappeared. "So, the third Hokage will lead the team this time?" Sakumo himself was baffled. The third Hokage personally led the team to the Uzumaki village. What an honor! But why should I go? Ikeban didn't think it was right. Hiruzen will lead the team, and 6 ninjas in one team is more than enough. Beat it. We will understand the details after meeting Sarutobi-sensei. Murasaki pulled the reluctant Ikeban from his house to Konoha's gate. Within a week, Ikeban had come to this gate the second time. They were welcomed by Tsunade, Orochimaru, and Jiraiya, who had been there waiting for them, and when Ikeban and the others arrived, Hiruzen came with the caravan's leader, Kazuma. The rest of the caravan followed behind them. "You are Ikeban Kurama. Thank you for saving my life before, on the border." Kazuma glanced with his eyes, and then immediately noticed the most unwilling one among the children. Hiruzen previously told him that Ikeban must be the most reluctant to come. "Old man, I was kind enough to save you, but you want to take me on your business trip?" Ikeban said grumpily. Kazuma scratched his head awkwardly, not knowing what to reply. "Ikeban, if you have any complaints, give it to me. I'm the one who planned this." Hiruzen said it lightly while smoking on his pipe. "Ah, Sarutobi-sensei, I just came back. Kazuma-san has bought a cart of your comic to deliver it to his village. Wouldn't you as the author at least thank him for his patronage by not complaining about the mission?" Without waiting for Ikeban to finish complaining, Hiruzen directly interrupted him. He didn't want to waste any more time. All right. But I've experienced how long I traveled from here to the Uzumaki village, and I can't bear another there again. Let me have a ride. Akaban made his proposal. Fair enough. Because of Kurama's weak physique, his request was tolerable for Hiruzen, and no one seemed to disagree, except Jiraiya, who looked jealous. At least now, he is willing to do the mission. I still need him on the team. Hiruzen though. Fortunately, Kazuma supplemented some idle carriage, which was meant for the third Hokage. Once they've got the same ground, the group of caravans guarded by the Team 6 and 7 set off to the Uzumaki village. While on the carriage, Akaban summoned his clone to resume the comic. Akaban separated the shadow clone and continued to paint, while he sat on his seat peacefully, looking down at the walking companions around him. Run faster. This is good for warming up. Why can't I be like Akaban? This is not fair. Jiraiya repeatedly complained along the way. Akaban has defeated you before, and you dare to complain. If you don't practice anymore, you will be dead before we got there. Hiruzen said angrily. Ah, yes sensei, I was wrong. Jiraiya looked somber after being scolded by his teacher. Speaking of which, I don't know how far Jiraiya has learned. Hearing Jiraiya's wailing, Akaban couldn't help but wonder about his progress. Of course. At this time, Jiraiya is still a 9-year-old, who is nothing special among his other teammates, only his uniqueness is his pervertedness, the same as his teacher. Besides, he suddenly wants to become a cartoonist while his drawing skill is mediocre. The group was moving slowly. Thus Akaban can draw while watching the scenery. More than that, when they arrived at the border, Akaban had already completed Chapter 11. What productivity! Chapter 11 has a very powerful new exchange item, Half Immortal Body Constitution. Half Immortal Body Constitution, the strength that is inherited from the bloodline of the Uzumaki clan, possessing multiple abilities, which require 4,000 points to exchange. Yes, an astounding 4,000 points. These are the biggest points required on his exchange list. But it is not surprising when compared with its usage. But to his surprise, this specific trait can be exchanged. Uzumaki clan were well known for their 4 traits: vitality, chakra, perception, and healing. In Chapter 11, Naruto is forced to injure his hand to remove the poison within him, and miraculously his hand recovers in an instant. This showed the embodiment of strong vitality. This trait was important for Akaban, which can guarantee his survival. However, even if it's on his exchange list, he gained points much slower these days, and can only wait until the second volume to be released. The second volume has been sent to the printing factory, and the Kurama clan is solely responsible for the subsequent distribution. When it's ready to be released, there would be enough points for him to exchange it. But here comes the problem. In Chapter 12, there will be much other useful ninjutsu to be available. He is worried that the points by then wouldn't be enough. I hope that bringing my comic to the Uzumaki village will contribute some more points, otherwise, I am afraid that I will have to work overtime, and release the third volume back to back. Akaban sighed lightly, feeling very helpless. Thinking about it this way, it doesn't seem like a bad thing that he took this mission. After all, Kazuma has too little knowledge of comics, and he definitely couldn't endorse the comic well enough. I just hope that when the time comes, the third Hokage won't give him any harder task. What lies ahead of us is Uzumaki village. That's also where we met those ninjas before here. Kazuma had a nostalgic feeling about the accident when he and his caravans on the verge of death were chased by the rebels. Hiruzen carefully observed their surroundings and said, "Akaban, did you bury the corpses after killing those ninjas?" "What? Akaban had killed someone?" Jiraiya jumped in shock. Even Orochimaru looked surprised and looked over to the carriage. "I don't have the time for that, sensei, so no." Akaban replied while still laying on the carriage, too lazy to look out the window. If Sarutobi sensei asked that, it is certain that the body has been cleaned up by the enemy. Thinking of that, he pulled the curtain open. With an unhappy expression on her face, Tsunade stood in front of the carriage. "Get down here." I haven't fully recovered." Before Akaban finished speaking, Tsunade was ready with her fist. "You come down here right now, or I smash that carriage into pieces." This is bad." Tsunade threatened with a fist. Murasaki tried to hold his laugh, obviously knowing that this would happen. "Akaban, come here, I want to know the details about that day." Hiruzen tried to persuade him with a smile. Akaban had no other option. He got out of the carriage and left his clone inside to continue drawing. 5 ninjas were killed by my genjutsu here. The Jounin died in this spot. Akaban threw out the shuriken, marking the positions of his victim. 5 ninjas. Tsunade clenched her fists and secretly compared her strength with him. "Can I handle 5 ninjas alone?" "Not a chance." "What? You killed 5 of them? The gap between us has grown that far in a short time." Jiraiya was equally shocked and stunned for a while. And Akaban can see that Orochimaru must have felt much worse. However, he also felt dread at that time. It was almost impossible to fight 5 Chunin alone. Luckily his surprise attack worked and killed them all with one shot. "Yeah, I killed some of them, but it's thanks to Danza sensei that I'm still alive now." They were well prepared with kunai, shuriken, and even explosion talismans. Akaban followed behind and explained. "I guess that the corpses were collected by the Hidden Mist Village ninja." Hiruzen had reached the spot. Although someone had dealt with the scene in the past 2 days, there were still some clues left behind. "So, those are ninja from Hidden Mist Village." Akaban thought to himself. Ninja from Hidden Mist Village attacked Uzumaki Village. Jiraiya was so excited that his eyes lit up. "Everyone disguised yourself with transformation jutsu. Kazuma-san, please come here." Hiruzen got up, then motioned to the caravan next to Kazuma to follow him. They rarely used transformation jutsu before, but the ninjutsu has been learned well in the academy. Akaban transformed into a middle-aged worker and sat lazily on the edge of a cart. Everyone has disguised themselves except Hiruzen. No one dares to attack him anyway. After all, this is the 3rd Hokage. And thus, they moved toward the Uzumaki village. Once they entered the border of Uzumaki village, it didn't take long for them to understand how bad the situation was. There were burned fields, ruins which used to be houses scattered around, and no one seemed to live there anymore. "This is horrible. Uzumaki village, this is the first time I have come here since I was little." Tsunade was very excited at first, but after seeing the situation with her own eyes, her heart was filled with sadness. This is Grandma's homeland, but... Akaban sighed in his heart, but he was also helpless. Tailed beasts are the greatest asset that a village could possess. It can be compared to nuclear bombs in his original world. Thus no one dares to attack a village with a Jinchuriki in it. But Uzumaki village was the nemesis of tailed beasts. that alone is enough to make them vulnerable to being attacked from every direction. Further ahead is an intersection of Uzumaki Village's commercial roads, and there is usually a rebels post guarding there. Kazuma was very nervous, and sweat came out of his forehead. Akaban took his tools and began to draw a map in advance. The caravan slowly moved forward, and some ordinary guards began to get close to the cart full of comics as if this was a very important cargo. At this time, they need to be careful. If they make any unneeded scenes, the life of the whole group will be taken the risk. Although Murasaki and Sakumo were nervous, they blended perfectly like an ordinary guard, for Tsunade and Orochimaru's posture were different. As for Akaban, he was sitting on the edge of the cart, holding a pen and board. Wow! Suddenly, the sound of leaves moving from the forest. Stop! Orochimaru shouted, and then they immediately saw several shurikens flying out from the forest. Jiraiya immediately got up and shot the shurikens off with kunai, while Tsunade rushed directly to the forest. Be careful! Sakumo's expression changed. He immediately charged Tsunade down to the ground before an explosion came. Boom! Explosion! Tsunade was to focus on the enemy, that she forgot the possibility of traps. After the explosion, Tsunade and Sakumo were dumbfounded by the impact and tried to bring back their senses. It turned out to be a few kids. Are they a genin who just graduated? I don't know who your teacher is, but he is dumb enough to bring you here. Hidden mist jutsu. Whoosh! A cloud of thick fog suddenly filled their vision, unable to say anything. Hidden mist jutsu. This is a ninja from Hidden Mist. Akaban's heart thumped harder. If his vision was blocked, he couldn't execute his genjutsu from drawing. In this situation, his genjutsu is almost useless. No. There is another way. He couldn't see, but hearing the sound was enough to counter their attack. Akaban holds his breath vigilantly. There. Suddenly, a slight sound of wind came from a direction. In an instant, he cast hand seals. Earth release, headhunter jutsu. Due to his fast reaction, he avoided the attack. The Hidden Mist's Chunin had no time to react before he was dragged to the ground and then pierced his throat by a kunai. You can use the earth release that well at that age. Behind him, there was an indifferent voice. They are killing intent. Akaban was sweating all over his body. He felt a blade approaching him and instantly reacted. Substitution jutsu. He changed his position quietly, but he knew the attacker could see him in the fog. Oh shit! Akaban has already cursed in his heart. He would die at any second by now if he failed to make a move. At this life and death moment, he suddenly remembered something. Akaban quickly opened his exchange list and redeemed something from it. Silent killing jutsu has successfully exchanged. Great! Akaban was ecstatic. After they attacked him, he remembered that his clone had finished chapter 12 and their silent killing jutsu was being used. In an instant, the sounds and breaths around him were clear as day. Behind him, he sensed a Hidden Mist's Chunin wielding a kunai. At the same time, he can sense Orochimaru and the others were fighting with some Chunin not far away. The worst was Jiraiya, who looked like he took some damage that can be heard from his hard breathing. However, he found something very strange. Although the Hidden Mist's ninja was holding a kunai, he didn't seem to be moving. Could it be that my silent killing of jutsu is not advanced enough? After all, it was just a few seconds ago he learned it. Akaban needs more time to adapt to his sharpened senses but has less time to take action. Akaban quickly analyzed his situation. The only logical explanation was that the Jounin had no intention to join the fight. I need to take action right now. He reacted quickly, then swiftly ran toward the presence of Orochimaru and the others were. He tried to deal with some Chunin on his way there and successfully killed one with a blow. However, after that kill, Akaban stops moving and remains in his position where he was hard to detect, followed by planning his next move. Boy, aren't you afraid to die? Suddenly, a figure appeared behind him, swiftly waving his blade. Akaban reacted by lowering his head and said, Sarutobi-sensei, what are you doing? Heh, you are indeed very clever, you've predicted that attack. Hiruzen whispered. Yes, I used silent killing jutsu, don't test me in this kind of situation, okay? Akaban complained calmly. Of course. If he hadn't exchanged the silent killing jutsu, he wouldn't notice the position of the Jounin, and he might still be lurking underground by now. Akaban's reaction didn't surprise Hiruzen. He knew that this boy was smart even if he was a slacker. Therefore, Akaban only reacts when he senses a threat. Hey, at least pay more respect to me, I'm much more senior than you. Hiruzen simply sat down and chatted, do you know why I did this? Akaban sat down and said while lowering his voice, the possibility of encountering the enemy in this fog is high. Sarutobi-sensei wants me to pay more attention to my surroundings, right? Well, but who you were fighting right now is not a shadow clone. They are all real. You've beat them. Akaban looked a little surprised. He thought that the Jounin presence before was Hiruzen, but he didn't expect that it was the real enemy. I've handled them all. Hiruzen finally shocked Akaban once more, saying it while looking slightly proud. Akaban was shocked. The third Hokage isn't just a title. Okay, basically, we have defeated the enemy. Let's clear up this fog first. Hiruzen's hands were performing hand seals to clear the thick fog. Whoosh! Finally, everyone was able to see their surroundings. What? There are so many ninjas lying on the ground. Murasaki was baffled, then he saw Akaban and Hiruzen standing near the body. Wait. 2 other ninjas were pulled into the ground, that must be Akaban doing. Orochimaru's mood became more and more complicated, and he quickly understood what was going on. The third Hokage had killed all the enemy and then disguised the enemy as a test. Undoubtedly, this test is not for them. Because the 5 of them were struggling enough just to deal with a few Chunin, unlike Akaban, who was able to overcome their number and quickly killed 2 Chunin. More than that, Orochimaru looked at the corpses and found that they were fatally wounded. Of course. Compared with Jiraiya and Tsunade, his result is still above average. Now, let's interrogate this Jounin. Hiruzen walked into the forest, everyone else followed him behind. The Jounin was badly injured but still breathing. Akaban squatted down and took a closer look. Hidden Mist's attire and the sword that Hiruzen-sensei hold must belong to him. But it was just an ordinary sword, not a chakra weapon. Then it wasn't one of the 7 swords of the mist. He is a renegade. Tsunade saw the scratches on his headband and said, it seems that even if he is alive, Hidden Mist wouldn't admit their mistake. That's for sure, and... Orochimaru raised his head and looked around. Something is coming. Hidden Mist's back up. Whoosh! With a sound, a rain of kunai flew toward them, but they managed to dodge it all. Akaban focusing his eyes on the direction of the kunai were thrown. He saw a figure appearing behind the branches. Just a small group, huh? I'll handle all of you. The figure talked to Akaban and his teammates. How many of your rebels in Uzumaki village? Akaban asked. I have no obligation to answer your question. The leader said calmly. Then we have nothing left to discuss. Akaban drew a stroke on his board, then the figure shook and fell to the ground. Ugh! Normally someone like him could dodge the fall, but Akaban cast his genjutsu to make him fall asleep for a second to let him fall without resistance. Akaban. Hiruzen didn't expect that Akaban would make the first move, and at the same time, he was impressed. By the look of it, the enemy was an Anbu and can't be underestimated, but Akaban was able to immobilize him easily. Without a doubt, Akaban possessed great potential even without his gift. His tactical skill and observation on the battlefield were outstanding. Ugh! Damn you! The Anbu awakened, and just by looking at his expression, they knew that he endured tremendous pain from his broken legs. Hiruzen said lightly, "What is your mission in this village?" "I just came to chase the escapee." He gritted his teeth. "So, you expected that I would just surrender and let you kill us all?" Akaban got up and stretched, and sneered slightly. "What a release!" The Anbu tried to escape using his ninjutsu, but Hiruzen slashed through his throat nonchalantly, and the blood scattered to the ground. As an Anbu, he couldn't give us more information than this. There is no point in asking him anymore. What should we do with him? Tsunade asked. Bring it back to the village and let our expert examine it. Hiruzen then summoned a clone, then sealed the hidden mists Anbu cops with sealing jutsu. Then he gave an order to Murasaki and Sakumo. You two and my clone will go back to the Konoha, then hand the body to your sensei. Yes. Sakumo brought the sealed scroll, while Murasaki carried the body on his back, and they separated with the party to go to Konoha. Tsunade watched them leave and then said in amazement, I thought you were going to beg Sensei to join them. I'm amazed, Akaba. Impossible, Sarutobi Sensei wouldn't listen to either way. Akaban got up. The Uzumaki village is indeed a dangerous place right now, but it gave him an opportunity. He can witness with his own eyes what truly happened there. Moreover, Akaban wanted to confirm his guess. It only took 30 points to awaken the 5 senses of control. And 4,000 points for Uzumaki's vitality. So it must be around 500 to 2,000 points to acquire Sharingan. The strength level of Sharingan mustn't be far from the 5 senses of control. It means it wouldn't cost too many points. Kazuma-san, shall we continue? Hiruzen has seen everything that happened in the Uzumaki village, and that made him more determined to protect the village, at least to keep the good relationship between the two villages. However, none of the official requests were sent by the Uzumaki village. Thus Konoha can't directly send their troops to help Uzumaki village, or else it would start another war. Sensei, can I have that sword? Jiraiya had a good look at the sword. His gleaming eyes told him that he wants to have it. That sword doesn't belong to us, it might not be safe, use it carefully. Akaban couldn't help but be reminded. Although this is just an ordinary sword, he noticed that the sword has custom marks on it. You idiot, Sensei took it because it was useful, an idiot like you couldn't use it properly. Tsunade scolded Jiraiya. If she didn't care about Jiraiya's injury, she would have punched him without hesitation. Hiruzen only replied to his disciple's request with a gentle smile, as what Tsunade said, the sword is still useful for the time being. As for its usefulness, Akaban has some guesses. One of them is to let Hiruzen use it as an authentic prop to disguise his identity and find more invaders. Moreover, it is a good addition to combat power. Kurama-sama. Kazuma suddenly called him with a formal tone. Akaban shuddered. Even now, no one has called him Sama, so he turned his head to see. Oh, it's you, what's the matter? Akaban didn't like Kazuma. The two first hardest missions that he got were related to him, and he was unhappy about it, but still, he kept a good manner. We almost arrived at the front gate of Uzumaki village. How do I promote your comic when we get there? Kazuma asked respectfully. When buying the comic, he asked around the Konoha residents about Akaban, then he inquired many details from Tsunade, and he was sure that Akaban was indeed a business genius. Akaban couldn't help but glance at Tsunade. If the old man asked this question, Tsunade must have told him something. Ugh. Never mind that, this is for my points. After taking a deep breath, Akaban said with a calm tone, since Uzumaki village is different from Konoha, if we want to promote it, we must first let the consumer know that the story was good. Please teach me more, Kurama-sama. Kazuma bowed deeply, with a very humble attitude. We will show this comic to the higher up of the Uzumaki village and let them get it for free. After that, we will tell the villagers that their leader bought the comic, and they like it. That is how the comic fame will gradually rise. Akaban explained his strategy while sitting on the cart, swinging his legs back and forth. Kazuma was confused at the beginning, but his face was somewhat surprised and worried. What's the matter again? Wasn't my explanation clear enough? Kurama-san, if it's true that this comic is that important, will the higher up allow us to sell it publicly? Kazuma was quite business-minded, but this question was so stupid that Akaban didn't bother to answer it, and pointed at the third Hokage. Ooh. Now that the Kage of Konoha had traveled to aid the Uzumaki village, they wouldn't dare to prohibit them from selling the comic, right? Besides, Kazuma had read the first volume, and there wasn't any classified information from there. Kazuma thought that only such a person like Uzumaki Maito could understand the meaning of the comic. This discussion has lightened up their mood. Kurama-sama, when we arrived at the Uzumaki village, please continue to hand your aid. Yeah. Not a problem. Kazuma left excitedly and ran to the front. Tsunade glared at Akaban until he willingly jumped out of the cart. He had no choice but to walk. Fortunately, they were not far from the village, and it didn't take long for them to see the outskirts of the Uzumaki village. The village here is far from what they saw earlier on the border. On both sides of the fields, dozens of villagers are busy farming, and they seem to live in peace. If you hadn't seen it with your own eyes, it would be hard to imagine that the gap between inside here and outside before would be so dramatic, and all this all because of war. Tsunade clenched her hands tightly, her eyes getting wet. This is unfair. Hiruzen touched his temple, feeling full of emotions. This is all because of the war. The winner will have a gift with prosperity, but the loser will carry all the burden. Jiraiya was looking upset. He always cares about Tsunade the most. Sensei, we will help Uzumaki village, right? Tsunade asked while trying to hold her tears. This is her grandma's hometown, but now that she saw it was treated unfairly amidst war, she must do something to fix this situation on her grandma's behalf. Even though she is a tough girl, when it comes to someone she cares for, she couldn't just stay still. Yes, we will help Uzumaki village. Hiruzen hesitated for a moment, then replied. The war is troublesome. Akaban sat back again on the cart and only watched from behind. Saving Uzumaki village. Don't be naive. With such a great conspiracy including many villages to exterminate Uzumaki village, even a dearest ally like Konoha can't help much. Even if Konoha declared their official move, they could only help some of the members of Uzumaki village and must sacrifice the others. But it doesn't matter right now. Akaban is only afraid that this thought could bother the group and clouded their mind. I'll just continue to draw the comic first. Shadow Clone Jutsu. The clone appeared, glanced at Akaban silently, and then consciously stepped into the carriage. The group continued on their way, and it didn't take long to see the gate of Uzumaki village. In the comics, Uzumaki village has never appeared before. The curiosity of a Naruto fan like Akaban can't help but kick in. At a glance, he felt a familiar scene. Hey, Akaban, the ornament here is very similar to Grandma's yard. Tsunade shouted in surprise. Akaban feels the same. It turns out that the yard was built with this place as a reference. Hearing what Tsunade said, Orochimaru looked over Akaban with a strange expression and asked. Akaban-kun, you have met with Mito-sama? Yes, for some reason, I've met her a few times. Akaban gave a light cough without giving a specific reason. After all, with such popularity that Mito Uzumaki had, a lot of people will be surprised. Is it about the comic? Yes, Grandma read the comic and came to enjoy it. Tsunade proudly showed off. How nice. Orochimaru said enviously. As Uzumaki Mito was a legend, he has always wanted to meet her, but unfortunately, since the Senju clan evacuated from the center of power in the past 2 years, she has been out of sight. However, after a brief moment of envy, a thought came to his mind. Could it be that Sensei came to Uzumaki village because of the few pages in the Akaban's comic? Well, about that. Among Akaban's content, is there any item worthy of everyone's attention? Tsunade was fascinated and filled her thoughts with curiosity. Akaban was only a 9-year-old boy who wrote about the Jinchuriki and the nine-tailed beast based on his imagination, which not everyone knew existed. Orochimaru, why are you so fussy? They already left you behind. Oh. After thinking about it for a long time, Orochimaru couldn't come up with a reason, and Jiraiya also called out and immediately ran to chase. When passing by Akaban, Orochimaru glared at him for a few seconds. At that moment, even Orochimaru didn't know what feeling he felt. It was like, maybe in the future, this person in front of him will be his opponent. So, this is the Uzumaki village. Wow, look. They are all red hairs. Stop acting like an idiot, of course. The Uzumaki clan are all red-haired. As a result of his stubbornness, Jiraiya got a punch on his stomach. Akaban was also a bit shocked. He never saw this much red-haired. After observing his surroundings, he found that the caravans didn't enter the village with them, but instead turned in another direction. I've never seen this much Uzumaki member before. He was shocked that the whole village was full of the Uzumaki clan, and those outside were foreigners. Welcome to Uzumaki village, my honor guests. I will take you to see the patriarch now. Kazuma introduced the village with a bitter smile. Then he stepped forward to lead the way. This is the Uzumaki village. If there was no Hashirama-sama, the fate of Konoha must be close to this village. Hiruzen sighed. Although it is not stated explicitly, the name of the Senju clan was terrifying before, thus that name alone, the whole Konoha, was protected from outsiders who wouldn't dare to cause trouble. I think it's because of the first Hokage's relation with the Uchiha clan that protected us. Akaban added. Ha, you are right. Hiruzen couldn't agree more. Senju, Uchiha, and the other clan cooperated to form a stable situation with Konoha after the war. Times makes heroes. Orochimaru thoughtfully. If you want peace, you must prepare for war. It makes sense. Tsunade is smart, but most of the time, she doesn't think about it. She only thinks about gambling and fighting. As for Jiraiya, he is dedicated to art, and he is even less interested in these matters. There is the Patriarch's office. Not long after, Kazuma left and pointed forward. Akaban looked up and immediately saw a building with the symbol of the Uzumaki clan. A figure was waiting inside the office. Hiruzen. I didn't expect you to come in person with these situations that happened. Although Hiruzen used the transformation jutsu, the person could still know it's him. Ha ha ha, Shikai. I haven't seen you for many years. I heard that Kazuma-san arrived at Konoha, so I followed over and had a look. Hiruzen lifted his transformation jutsu and greeted his old friend kindly. Is he the patriarch? Akaban observed calmly. His age was not much different from the third Hokage, and he was a tall person. His strength must be near the third Hokage's level. As my dearest guests, I'll take you all to look around. Shikai Uzumaki is very enthusiastic, but it looks like his enthusiasm is mixed with concern. Since I've done guarding the caravans, let's talk about business first. Hiruzen rejected the invitation. With the current situation, he is in no mood to stroll around the village. All right, let's talk while we walk. Shikai was just chit-chatting before, so it's best to get into the real subject quickly. Then Kazuma walked to his side to report his situation along the way, including being chased by assassins, then being rescued by Akaban, and had a conversation with Mito Uzumaki. You mean, this book? Oh no, comic. Shikai looked at the book, and then at Akaban, with a puzzled look on his face. What could be implied from this kid's book? That's what the princess said. Kazuma respectfully explained. Okay. After listening, Shikai opened the first page. Nine-tailed demon fox. Isn't this Konoha's tailed beast? Immediately, he thought of Konoha's Jinchuriki, isn't it Mito Uzumaki? But above. The nine-tailed demon fox turned rampage, and the Jinchuriki's successor turned out to be an idiot who couldn't even master the clone jutsu. No matter how far my clan has fallen, it won't come to this. When Shikai saw this, he almost tore the comic with anger. Seeing the anger on his face, Akaban was calm and replied without nervousness, Oh, do you think so? The Uzumaki village is indeed experiencing difficulties right now, but they can't exterminate our clan. Shikai is very confident. Every ninja in their clan possesses enormous strength, and it can be said that it is almost impossible that their clan would go extinct. Hiruzen didn't interrupt and calmly smoked and listened, while Akaban laughed and shook his head without saying a word. Why are you laughing? Shikai sneered and said, I'm not talking big. If the Hidden Mist village wants to destroy our land, they can do it in their next life. What if it's not just the Hidden Mist? The Uzumaki village has been on the corner for too long, so long that you became ignorant. Akaban was merciless. He was just a child anyway. Being scolded by a child was shameful, but it has to be done. The leader of Uzumaki village must know their future fate. If other villages want to attack us, first they must go through the Land of Fire. Since when the Land of Fire has become your allies? Before he could finish speaking, Orochimaru interrupted. We. Shikai was pointing at Hiruzen, but he suddenly realized something. They were allied with Konoha but not the entire nation. Ah, Shikai, it's just a child talk, don't be too bothered by it. Hiruzen jumped out to cut the debate since it was too one-sided. He felt bad for his friend. As the leader of a clan, it's shameful to be angry with children. Then he continued to read the book. After reading it for a few pages, Shikai felt the plot was more and more realistic. His village was destroyed alongside the whole clan, only left with some members who were able to take a refugee to a certain village. He took a deep breath and sat down weakly. If the Land of Fire wants to attack them, can the Uzumaki village defend it? Impossible. Even if they have Konoha as an ally, they would still be outnumbered and slowly be defeated. Oh. No wonder you're the only one coming. Shikai opened the comic again, and after reading another page, he closed his eyes in pain. At this moment, he understood everything. Why did Konoha learn about their allies' situation but only sent a few shinobi to aid them? Even their original mission was only escorting the caravans. Shikai, it is not too late to understand that you can preserve your clan's future to the greatest extent. Hiruzen said to his old friend. And then what? Where can we go after we survive? The daimyo of the Land of Fire must have plotted carefully with their allies how to overthrow Uzumaki village, and they wouldn't trust the Konoha that much, or else what's the point of creating the 12 Guardian Ninja in the first place? I'm afraid that Uzumaki village will take aid from Konoha only. After the Shikai analyzed everything, his heart grew more and more fearful. Is it that serious? Tsunade was dumbfounded. She thought it was just a normal problem, but now it sounded like the extermination of a whole race. Jinchuriki. Shikai couldn't explain it in a word. He knew their problem was not their position or strength, but because of their capability to use sealing jutsu. Every village wants to possess the power of tailed beasts, and it's just normal that they want to eliminate the one who has an advantage on that, and it is Uzumaki clan. Thus, they were meant to encounter great misfortune. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that Akaban had a terrifying vision. How could a 9-year-old boy predict this kind of situation? Akaban-san, where do you think our clan should go? Shikai admitted his powerlessness and asked hesitantly. You must spread out the clan, and change their name and surname. Akaban kept winking at Tsunade, meaning something. This means, to become the Senju clan. Shikai was stunned for a moment, then analyzed the possibility. If it is the Senju clan, and they were scattered with a small number, the daimyo wouldn't be able to notice. Right. Then a marriage. Akaban-san, I remember you are from the Kurama clan, right? He stared at Akaban suspiciously. Akeki Genkai can only be passed down to the direct descendant, and these children in front of him are undoubtedly going to become great shinobi. But that grey-haired old man doesn't count, also the grey-haired premature brat also doesn't count. Shikai had an idea involving Orochimaru and Akaban in mind, especially Akaban, who was from the Kurama clan that has a weak physique trait. Then they need the Uzumaki clan's physique to improve their next generation. Perfect. Akaban was starting to get annoyed by the stare, but he immediately understood what Shikai was thinking. No. I'm just a child. Akaban-san, if I'm not wrong, the Kurama clan has the disadvantage for having a weak physique, right? And you know, the Uzumaki clan was outstanding in the physical area, how about it? Shikai Uzumaki enthusiastically promoted his clan's excellence, can you imagine Ikeban-san? The genjutsu specialty of Kurama clan combined with the sealing jutsu of my clan. Ho ho. Hiruzen laughed with a strange smile, not at all interrupting the idea. Genjutsu and sealing jutsu. This is a good idea, and including the vitality of Uzumaki. Wait, no. If we talked about the potential, it looks tempting, but I don't want to marry anyone right now. Ikeban shook his head quickly. He can't accept their proposal, even if it gives him a lot of benefits. Ikeban simply can't agree. Maybe you want to take a stroll. The girls of our clan are well known to be the cutest, don't you agree? Shikai wouldn't stop halfway. Hey, I am not like you. Tsunade, who was listening to their conversation, has a strange expression on her face. Her eyes moved back and forth between Ikeban and Shikai. No. Once I said no, it means no. Ikeban said firmly, but he looked like about to cry. I do think that the Uzumaki's girls are pretty cute too. Orochimaru said it shamelessly. Don't agree with him, Orochimaru. Ikeban glanced at Orochimaru with a murderous aura. Shikai turned his head and said with a smile, ha, finally someone agrees with me, please find someone you would like to marry. Hey, what about me? Jiraiya rushed from the back. But he just wants to see a lot of pretty girls without any intention to marry them. Shikai glanced at him without saying a word. Ha, okay. Let's take the joke slide aside. Hiruzen knocked his smoking pipe on the table, and the situation was suddenly quiet. After a few seconds, Shikai felt a bit strange. Isn't this Uzumaki village? Then why does it feel that Hiruzen is in charge here? After a moment of silence, the third Hokage said, you can send some of your clan's members to Konoha. I can volunteer to speak with the daimyo on Uzumaki village's behalf. Shikai didn't answer, but he didn't need to point out the meaning. Konoha wanted to help, but it was extremely difficult to be done with many eyes from other countries watching their every movement. It's pretty good to be able to keep some of our bloodlines. Shikai Uzumaki sighed. Kazuma just said that you have also brought a lot of comics. Yes, Shikai-sama. Kazuma stood up nervously. You can use the small house by the gate as the storage, and I will send someone to arrange your accommodation. Thank you, Shikai-sama. Kazuma ecstatically thanked him. Ikeban felt that this old man was in a hurry and was about to sneak away quietly. But what he didn't expect, Hiruzen would call him the moment he was about to sneak away. Ikeban, you will accompany me to stroll around the village. What? What the hell? Ikeban looked suspiciously at Hiruzen. He must have to plot something. Sensei, how about us? Tsunade's tone was a bit jealous. Hunting. Hiruzen said indifferently, I will assign a shadow clone, and you can hunt the hiding invaders around the village. Killing is something that a ninja will experience sooner or later. Although they killed a few Chunin last time, they might have been injured because of Sakumo and Murasaki's assistance. Yes. Orochimaru looked excited. Now he is more interested in fighting than strolling in the village. I don't need your clone's assistance, Sensei. I can get rid of the invaders by myself. Again, acting like a fool. The atmosphere, which was a bit dull before, quickly became lightened with a few words from Jiraiya. Tsunade was in a bad mood, then just let it slide. After watching them leave, Ikeban asked confidently, Shikai-san, Sensei, where are we going to? We will visit my house first. Your house? Ikeban stared at the patriarch Shikai, and then guessed that it might become a blind date with his daughters. Konoha Village, Anbu Headquarter. Danza-sama, I brought you the second volume of Akaban's comic. Danza's subordinate gave him a copy of Naruto Volume 2. Danza took it. There is no cover for this book, since it was stolen from the printing factory. He glanced at it and then asked, "How is the examination of the Chunin that was sent by the Hokage?" Hidden Mist's Chunin, he was proficient on the silent assassination, but lack on talent, so he was sentenced to do a suicide mission. The Anbu reported the information that they found one by one. Danza tapped his finger on the desk and asked after thinking for a moment, "Is there no deeper information?" "Not yet." "Then, keep on monitoring." After giving the order, the Anbu disappeared, and Danza opened the comic. In the dark underground space of Anbu HQ, there was only the sound of flipping paper. He scanned it. The content of the first few chapters was swept away, and he gradually stopped when he reached the 9th and the 10th chapter. In the land of waves, Konoha's exam system is so strict, how could there be mistakes on the grade evaluation? Danza sneered, closed the comic, and then took out a map. After analyzing it for a moment, he sat down and fell into deep thought. The destruction of the Uzumaki village is the main point, but if we can intervene in the land of waves, we can use it as a scapegoat. There will be an inevitable war in the future, and Konoha will be involved in it. The key is still in Uzumaki village. The Uzumaki clan is a valuable ally, and we can't let them be destroyed, at least not now. Danza was secretly plotting his next move for the future. Afterward, he turned his attention back to the Uzumaki village. Hiruzen, when he comes back, the Uzumaki village will be a battlefield. He is the Kage of Konoha. He can't stay there too long, because soon that place will be a battlefield between villages. Let me introduce you to my beloved daughter, Tomiko Uzumaki. Looking at the girl's beautiful eyes, Akaban felt nervous. He is offering me his daughter. But she is only 6 years old, isn't that too much? Daughter, the comic on your hand, was drawn by Akabani-san, do you like it? Shikai Uzumaki talked to her daughter while patting her head gently. Thank you, Akabani-san. Tomiko grabbed the comic and thanked me sweetly. Ah. Yeah. It's fine. Akaban covered his face. With such a small child, Shikai has a willingness to match those two. Well, Akaban, can you take care of Tomiko for a while? Hiruzen and I want to talk about important matters. Shikai Uzumaki smiled treacherously. Yeah. I knew it. Akaban has helplessly accepted the request. Tomiko was very well behaved. She sat down, holding the comic, and read it quietly while staring at the drawing. At the age of 6, she already recognizes most of the words. Akaban stared at her for a few seconds, feeling a tingle in his heart. To be honest, even though Tomiko is still young, her facial features are very pretty. As far as the lowly state is concerned, she may be a little cuter than Tsunade. Tsunade is slightly better in terms of appearance, but her brute strength and gambling addiction are not compatible with this lowly. Tomiko is different. Cute small face, round eyes, red hair. Cough cough cough. What's wrong, Nuzan? Is your throat itchy? I'll pour you some water. Ah, no, I'm fine. You can keep reading. Akaban hurriedly denied it while driving away from the dangerous thoughts in his mind. Please, Akabani, I'll pour it for you. Dad asked me to treat his guests well. Tomiko was worried, then poured a glass of water from the table. When he reached the cup, he saw that there were a few petals of fragrant tea leaves floating. He smelled the tea, heartwarming. The daughter of the Uzumaki clan can take care of her guesses like this. Cute, considerate, and well-mannered, she has the waifu material. Ooh. What the hell I'm thinking about? Akaboni, why does Naruto have yellow hair, even if he is an Uzumaki? Tomiko asked out of curiosity. To her knowledge, all the Uzumakis have beautiful red hair. His yellowish hair was inherited from his father, who wasn't from the Uzumaki clan. Akabon answered with a smile. What is inheritance? It's, certain characteristics of parents will be passed on to the next generation. Oh, how come Naruto can't even master the clone jutsu? The Uzumaki clan is full of talent, this kind of jutsu should be easy to master. After asking some questions, Akabon realized the feeling of being a dad. Ouch. Watch your situation. He sighed. Teehee, Akaboni is so smart, you know everything. As she read and asked questions, Tomiko became more and more fond of Akabon. Ah, that is because I love to read books. Akabon replied shamelessly. Tomiko didn't know Akabon's lazy nature, and if Tsunade ever heard of this, she would mock and punch him immediately. By the way, where is your mother? Hiruzen and Shikai must be talking about which members should be taken to Konoha, and Akabon had a wild guess that Tomiko must be forced into the Kurama clan, so it's necessary to know her background. Like Naruto, my mother had long gone since I was a baby. Tomiko answered with a sad expression. Oh. I'm sorry, Tomiko-chan, there are a lot of comics and posters in my home. If your dad asks you to come to my home, would you be willing to? Really? After looking gloomy, her eyes lit up again, but then she looked inside her house worriedly. Don't worry Tomiko, everyone on Konoha is friendly. You can stay there for a while if you want to. At this time, Shikai Uzumaki has come back. Really? What about you, Dad? I would love to accompany you there, my love, but I have some business here to finish first. I might join you later. Shikai patted her hair fondly. As the patriarch, he can't abandon his duty. Otherwise, the entire Uzumaki clan will collapse. Then, I will reconsider it. Take your time, my friends and I will stay in this village for the time being. Such a sweet little girl shouldn't die in the middle of chaos. Even a slacker like Akabon was moved and tried to persuade her to avoid such a fate. Thinking about having a little girl helping him in his comic, Akabon can only smile suspiciously. It looks like his thought about the unity of two clans has changed big time. Ahem. Hiruzen coughed a few times, and he secretly kicked Akabon. Akabon quickly converged his expression so that no one would see it. He was secretly surprised. Ah yeah, what a shameless person that I am. Akabon glanced at Shikai, but fortunately, the father didn't notice it. Otherwise, he will changes the plan entirely. Hey, what's wrong with me? He was lost in thought and snapped out of it. Akaba, let's go out first. Hiruzen said lightly. Yes, sensei. Following Hiruzen outside the house, he saw Hiruzen standing while smoking in the courtyard. Akabon asked the doubts in his heart, Sensei, how did you find that I was distracted? It because I just looked at you acting like Jiraiya's would. Damn it. Akabon's expression is sluggish. This is simply the biggest insult. Leave that aside, about Shikai, we agreed to send some children into Konoha, what do you think? Hiruzen was smoking a cigarette, and by the look of it, he was serious. Akaban also got serious, and after thinking for a moment, he answered, "This plan benefits them and us equally. If Kyuubi rampages again, we have someone to seal it from the Uzumaki clan." "That is just how Danza would say, what's your thought about it?" Hiruzen could notice his insincerity. "It has little to do with me. If you're against it, I can still sell my comic anyway," Akaban said lazily. "Maybe most of the villagers have the same idea as you, but there are still some." Hiruzen breathes out a cloud of smoke. As Hokage, he can see through most situations, so what is needed is not real advice, but someone who can talk to, help him to analyze the situation. The integration of the Uzumaki clan into the Konoha's clans might cause turbulence, especially with some strict clans like Uchiha or Hyuga. Well, for Uchiha, they always will be unsatisfied with their position whether Uzumaki was joining Konoha or not. It is thanks to Hyuga as another powerhouse who could suppress the Uchiha's influence in Konoha. Akaban talked about his views on other potential problems. Hiruzen has just been elected as the Hokage, and he is still in his prime. The voices of some clans could be ignored, and besides, they only took some children, causing a public backlash was unlikely. After Tomiko stays at Konoha, if something happened to the Uzumaki village, please comfort her, and you'd better persuade her to change her surname. Hey, what does this mean to me? Akaban's face changed. When a woman marries, she will change her surname to her husband's surname. How Hiruzen put up his words was just weird. Literal meaning. Hiruzen said firmly, Daimyo has been taking a lot of moves these days. First, he has deployed ninja protection. Now it seems that he has to establish a group of a guardian ninja. Guardian ninja. It must be the roots of the 12 guardian ninja. Akaban thought to himself. If this is the case, then it's no wonder that Konoha didn't do anything in this current situation. Sometimes later, Kushina Uzumaki will come, and many other Uzumaki will marry an ordinary person on their run from the village. He thought for a moment, but he couldn't figure out why. But, I'm glad you can well behave there. Hiruzen reached out to pat Akaban's hair, but he quickly kept his distance. She is such a sweet girl. I can't imagine her in the middle of the chaos that will come. Akaban sighed. Not that he learned that Konoha's peace is precious and a privilege. Especially as a traverser, it is very lucky for him to come to this specific era. Well thought, as a reward, I will teach you a little trick. Hiruzen smiled slightly. From Hiruzen's perspective, Akaban still had a moral compass that led him with his decision, not like his teacher Danza. Akaban proved that he is different from him. Therefore, he decided to teach Akaban his ninjutsu. Oh. Really? What is it? Akaban glanced at him with excitement. He was just simply surprised and curious at the same time. It is the third Hokage himself that will teach him a genjutsu. What will it be? Hiruzen said lightly, it's ninjutsu taught by my sensei. Hiruzen's teacher. It is Tobirama Senju. Akaban's eyes lit up passionately. Then Hiruzen starts to cast it hand seals. Genjutsu, Infinite Darkness Jutsu. Pitch black. In an instant, Akaban's vision was surrounded by complete darkness. Akaban took a deep breath and quickly adapted to the darkness. What do you think of it? Hiruzen smiled slightly. Hiruzen doesn't have many genjutsu, but Infinite Darkness Jutsu is very handy, especially when dealing with certain clans. Of course, sensei. It's a rare chance to learn ninjutsu from the third Hokage. Anything that he knows must be valuable. Akaban listened carefully and quickly remembered the seals and the ninjutsu. But this was an A-level genjutsu, and it would take a long time to learn it by himself. He glanced at the exchange list. The name, Infinite Darkness Jutsu, did not appear on it. Should I practice it by myself? He smacked his mouth regretfully. A-level genjutsu must take a lot of time to practice, besides, my current genjutsu is enough. Forget it. I might as well draw a few more if I have the time. Akaban comforted himself in his heart. Hiruzen didn't know what he was thinking, but based on his personality, it was not difficult to guess Akaban's next goal. As expected. Sensei, where do we stay for the night? He hasn't taken a proper rest for some time, and it was almost noon. Akaban wants to find some nice place to sleep tonight. Practicing this new ninjutsu could come later. Well, I'll just let my clone draw the next chapter. The most suited task for me right now is to take a rest. Don't worry. You can continue to practice your genjutsu. Hiruzen said with a dense smile. Akaban sneered. He turned around and walked outside the courtyard. I'll see how the comics are selling. There is always a place to find a caravan, which is more comfortable than standing here all day. This kid just needs to be more diligent. Hiruzen's expression was stiff and took a breath after he left. Akaban left the yard and joined the caravan at the entrance of the village. Although he is a stranger, because he came out of the patriarch's house, there is no trouble coming out like this. When he reached the village gate, he finally saw a group of people with Kazuma on the side. Move the cabinet, yes, just put it here. Kazuma commanded loudly to let people quickly arrange their goods into an abandoned house. This house was idle for some time, and there was a lot of dust accumulated on it, and it took them a lot of time to clean it. But what are you putting on? Akaban almost threw up when he saw the shop decoration. Akaban-san, what bothered you? Kazuma asked in astonishment. When he said that, he turned his head and glanced, and he became more suspicious. No matter how you look at it, nothing felt wrong. These decorations are awful. How are we supposed to expect the customers to buy anything from here? Do you know what symmetry is? Akaban looks like someone with constipation on his face. He is not an obsessive-compulsive disorder, but their perception of symmetry is a mess, and it insults his characters as a former art student. This is just a decoration. Does it need to be exaggerated? Kazuma pondered for a long time but still couldn't understand what Akaban meant. Akaban turned around, then took his pen and paper and quickly drew a sketch. Afterward, he handed the sketch into Kazuma's left hand. Do it like this. The old man glanced carefully for a while, and then let someone follow this arrangement. With the sketches in their hand, everyone followed his order swiftly. Before long, the store gradually became neatly arranged. The cabinets are neatly placed on both sides, with a table in the middle, and comics on the top. Akaban-san, it is really a lot more satisfying to see this way. Kazuma said in surprise. This is still not enough. Akaban takes a vintage view from the outside. He shook his head regretfully, still missing a few posters. He pondered for a moment, and he had an idea. When you go to publicity, tell those people that not only do they have a comic to buy, but they can also get a hand-drawn poster at random chances. Akaban cast hand seals, and the identical shadow clone appeared from his side. Okay, I will do it, as you said. Kazuma accepted the task without complaining, even if he looked a little confused. There were still a lot of Uzumaki members who were not ninjas around the village. And those people were their target for selling the comics. So he hurriedly off, holding a comic book, and visited every family house to start promoting it. In front of the shop, Akaban's shadow clone set up the utensils and sat down to start making posters. Street performance. The method that Akaban thought of was to draw in front of everyone that passed by the store to build some curiosity around the villager. As for him, after moving the comic on the cart, Akaban spread out a few pieces of fabric and lay on it. It's a pity that the second volume was still in print when I went here. Otherwise, the first and second volumes will be sold together, and that is how I could gain tons of points. He thought to himself. Calculating the time, Konoha's second volume should be on sale soon. But there is no way that he could go back to Konoha now. Hiruzen and Danza will force him to stay here for the time being. If he collects enough points to exchange for Sharingan or the Uzumaki's half-immortal vitality, then his survivability will dramatically improve. Akaban thought to himself. Until now, he has never had the chance to use fire release or silent killing. But in the future, this ninjutsu would come in handy. With these peaceful times, I won't need to use this ninjutsu. It is such a shame. Akaban lay down on the cart, staring at the trees and flowers. For him now, lying down and resting are the most precious things. Perhaps tomorrow, he will be given the task to hunt down the rebels just like his other friends. As things were done, his surroundings gradually calmed down, leaving only the sound of tools that were used by the workers. Akaban lay on top, slowly becoming sleepy. At this moment, the sound of footsteps came from a distance. Subsequently, these voices became clearer. Akaban raised his head, and the child rushed from behind. Only a child. He froze for a moment. Although children are most likely to be tempted by comics, who will pay for them? Is it impossible to do a giveaway? Akabani, Ojison was right, you are here. Suddenly, a delicate voice came. Who does this voice belong to? Akaban slowly raised his head to look at his clone, who was exactly like him. A bunch of children arrived, and it was Tomiko who was leading them who talked. Wow, what is your plan now, Sarutobi-sensei? Akaban uncomfortably tried to avoid contact, shrinking his head while quietly using the transformation jutsu. However, hey, this is the real Akabani. Sweeping his eyes upwards, Akaban was shamefully caught even if he had already transformed. Didn't I give you a comic before? He sat up and coughed embarrassingly. I came to see you, Akabani, but I heard from Kazumagi-san that you were here. Tomiko said. She came all the way here, and no one seemed to lead the way, which may indicate her ability is perception. He said inwardly. In the actual comic, Karen possessed the ability of Mind's Eye of the Kagura, which could the user sensed chakra from an exceptional distance with great detail. This is indeed a huge benefit for the side that the user chooses on the battlefield. Akaban became worried. In his mind, the third Hokage, Danza, etc. flashed by. These people someday we'll know, and I am afraid that they will not let her spend her life easily. Whoa! Look, he is drawing. It looks like a man with red hair. Wow, looking good. At this time, there were bursts of excitement from the children who were watching over the clone performance. Tomiko is also as curious as to the other children, but she seemed afraid that Akaban would run away if she didn't watch him just for a second. He is drawing people from our clan. HMMPH. In the comic store, many people were surrounding Akaban's clone, who was drawing for the posters. That hype made Tomiko hesitate for a moment but finally set her mind. Akabani, who is that person that was drawn? A child leaned forward and asked curiously. This is Nagato Uzumaki. His clone smiled lightly after he finished his drawing. Take it and hang it up there. Before finishing his sentences, everyone rushed through the door. The poster shows a boy about 7 or 8 years old with red hair and long bangs covering his one eye. A simply handsome boy still without his notorious Rinnegan. Not until Nagato became the sage of the Sixth Path, his Rinnegan will be hard to describe in this current era, and Akaban doesn't want to complicate things that he shouldn't have drawn. Because such a person like the third Hokage might instantly notice it, and Akaban doesn't want to be interrogated for it. Next, I will draw a picture of someone here as a present. You little girl who holds the comic on hand, I'll draw you next. The clone turned around and looked at Tomiko, then took out a new drawing paper and started drawing. Me. Tomiko looked at the clone in amusement, then turned to look at Akaban. Just a small gift. Akaban smiled gently. It was his clone that did it anyway, and he was enjoying the moment. Tomiko nodded and stood up nervously, for fear that her current appearance is a mess. The clone draws one stroke at a time and quickly outlines the graph. Not long after, the rough image of the little girl was on paper. The children were attracted to how delicate the clone's drawing was, and Akaban was able to rest safely. But watching his clone surrounded by a dozen little girls adoringly, and his smiley expression can tell it all. Lolicon. Akaban sneered secretly while lying in the cot. After a bit of irony, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. If my clone is a lolicon, then what makes me? No, I only adore Tomiko, who is undoubtedly the best. Akaban nodded secretly, comforting himself. At this time, the portrait has been completed. When the small detail has been perfected, the clone handed it to her. Hey Tomo-chan, let me see. I want to see it too. Hey, be careful, you might sever it. A group of children swarmed her in an instant. Tomiko was drawn very cute in the portrait, and it looked exactly like her in every detail. It's awesome. Everyone was equally shocked. Although photos had already been invented in this world, the children had never seen anything like comics or even a portrait of themselves, and this is their first time. Akabani, will you draw my portrait if I buy your comic? These children were immediately swarming Akaban's clone with their big cute eyes. The caravan's guard's eyes lit up. This is undoubtedly a very good promotion method, but immediately they looked at Akaban and his clone. Akaban is considered as the boss here, and it would be hard for him alone to draw all the children. The clone looked hesitant. To draw all these children, how long would it take? But of course, I will. Akaban got up from the cart and smiled slightly. Really? The guards were surprised by his answer, and when they saw the children rushing into the store with a great ruckus. Within a few seconds, everyone burst out again. All of them held a copy of the comic in their hands, but none of them seemed to pay for it. Akaban smiled bitterly. He already had enough money. But this seems a bit too much, right? Just before he was about to ask, Tomiko whispered in his ear, Akabani, don't worry about it. Their parents will come over to pay for it all. Well, are these the children from your village? Akaban nodded to express understanding and then asked smoothly. Almost all of them. We don't have many children in our clan. She carefully put away her portrait while answering his questions. I don't know that the population is that small. Akaban knew what was going on when he thought about it. The Uzumaki clan indeed has a strong physique and other unique traits, but it seems that their birth rate was somewhat low. All right, everyone, please make a line. I'll start drawing your portrait one by one. With this many children, he can imagine the exhaustion after he finished. Poor clone. With his short lifespan, he is afraid that he will devote every time that he has to draw their portraits. Konoha Village, Akaban's comic store. Oji-san, you don't need to unload all the goods. Just give us the copy. Ah, yeah, that's right, Akaban is not here anyway, there is no need to put posters. Hurry up, please. We are going too late for our training. Before the comics were put on the cabinets, a crowd of customers had already flocked to take one directly from the cart. Ah, this is bad. Akaban's father looked hesitant, but suddenly, a pile of 100 RYS was scattered on the table, and then the customers left one by one. The store was too crowded, so there was no time to wait for him to load the goods. Sakumo, your son is very talented, totally different from you. Murasaki walked while reading the comic. As an elite shinobi, Kakashi can teach his disciples how to work as a team. He is not my son. Sakumo retorted. Oh, don't talk so full, what if you give birth to a son and name it Kakashi, wouldn't it be a shame? Ha, such a bad name, I will never. Sakumo insisted again. Although he was talking to Murasaki, he was also reading the comic swiftly, and not long before he reached chapter 8. At this point, the test on Team 7 is over. The point is teamwork, ha, look who's talking, Akaban. They both sneered at the same time. As teammates, they know Akaban better than the others. As long as he can slack off, Akaban will not let go of the opportunity. I'm more curious about the Hidden Mist. Seeing the Chunin from Hidden Mist in chapter 10, Sakumo became gloomy. As a member of the Hatake clan, he excelled at assassination, and he knew that if he stayed on the Uzumaki village a bit longer, he could improve his skills greatly. But unfortunately, as an order, he had to go back to Konoha early. Just wait for the right time. The troubles in Uzumaki village wouldn't be finished anytime soon. Murasaki comforted in a low voice. According to his guess, the turmoil in the Uzumaki village may last much longer. Hopefully, I could learn their assassination methods. Sakumo said, then closed the comic. But at this time, a voice came into them. Danza-sama has an order for you, go to the Land of Waves and eliminate the rebels there. The Land of Waves. Sakumo and Murasaki were slightly surprised. Isn't this something that has been mentioned in Akaban's comic? Coincidence? Or? Yes, and when you got there, remove any of your identity as someone from Konoha. This is classified, and everything mainly about espionage and assassination. This is also the words that came from Danza-san. The Anbu ninja continued. Our identity as Konoha's ninja cannot be exposed. That means if one of us got caught, we must kill each other. Murasaki took a deep breath. Indeed. Also plus another extra chapter if 3K stones reach. Kazuma came back after promoting the store around the village and saw that half of the comics had been sold, and by that, he smiled happily. Even if the children still haven't paid for the comics, he wouldn't worry about that. At this time, no one dares to leave the village, and the Uzumaki village is quite isolated, so the parents will come over and pay. Even after Kazuma shipped it from Konoha, He raised the price to 120 RY, which is not too expensive, so he can still make a profit out of it. After all the publicity stunts that I did, you should have at least given me some commission, Kazuma-san. Akaban whispered, after I drew so many portraits of those children, do you know how tired I am? Yes, Akaban-san, I'm fully aware of that. Kazuma smiled but complained inwardly. Are you tired of that? Isn't all the work done by your clone? He secretly envies how convenient being a ninjas are. If he knows how to use such ninjutsu like a shadow clone, he doesn't need to work himself. By the way, Sarutobi-sama has something to say to you, so if you have the time to, please go visit him. All right, I'll go to meet him. I wonder what it is again this time. If it is an urgent matter, I surely will come there with substitution jutsu, but since it looks like a small matter, there is no need to be in a hurry. Akaban's clone is still working. There are still 60 children or more waiting to get their portraits. I am afraid this will take much longer to finish. Unfortunately, medical ninjutsu is still not well renowned. Akaban sighs genuinely in his heart. These children are members of the Uzumaki clan. No matter whose blood is taken, they can confirm his guess. However, without medical ninjutsu, if he dared to start, the patriarch of the clan would come out in any second. We will be progressing slowly then. According to the situation, if Konoha intervenes with the Uzumaki village's matters, then the rest of the other villages will also take action. At this time, the blood of the Uzumaki clan was not hard to find, and at the same time, he secretly thought about how to maximize his interests. If his guess is right that having the blood of someone like Uzumaki can reduce the cost of points to acquire their physics on his list, then it's worth a try. Shadow clones and genjutsu may be able to disguise identity. Akaban thought to himself. Being in Konoha is peaceful, but he will also be bound by its rules. He needs to break free from it. Shadow clone and genjutsu are good choices, but there is a premise. He doesn't have enough chakra. This only means that he must first obtain the half-immortal physique. And by that, he can put aside Sharingan for now. Akaban was lying on the cot, feeling a little sleepy, and was about to fall asleep, but suddenly. Akabani, someone is here. There are 3 pus. No, 2 people, and the other one is a clone. Tomiko leaned close to Akaban's face and whispered. Is someone coming? He was slightly surprised. Even after he continuously improved his chakra and perception, he didn't feel them coming, while Tomiko was able to not only hear but also knew how many people and distinguished a clone from there. With a little girl possessing an amazing perception like hers, it's a bit too terrifying. When this talent is taken to the battlefield, the enemy definitely can't hide from her perception, and the fight will be too easy. Akaban shuddered and solemnly said in a low voice, Tomiko, you must not tell anyone about your ability, do you understand? Yeah. Sorry, Akabani. She nodded, looking confused. At this time, Akaban can finally hear the voices of 3 people approaching him. Not long after, Orochimaru, Tsunade, and Hiruzen's clone all came into sight. Where is Jiraiya? Akaban was shocked. Jiraiya is missing. Tsunade was sad and blamed herself, if I can support him back then. Tsunade, this is not your fault alone. Hiruzen shook his head with a complicated expression. Well, tell me what happens. Akaban has a vague guess, but he still needs to know the details. Jiraiya used a summoning jutsu, and suddenly he disappeared. Orochimaru's voice was lower than usual and looked somewhat shaken. The problem was, I didn't teach him how to summon jutsu. Hiruzen lightly sighed. Jiraiya's parents have died in the First Ninja World War. Therefore there is no way he could learn summoning jutsu by himself, and this kind of ninjutsu, only a small number of ninja knew it. Akaban was shocked after hearing this. History has changed. Originally, Jiraiya learned summoning jutsu from Hiruzen, but now because of Akaban's existence, the third Hokage was more focusing his time on the Uzumaki village, which was supposed to be doomed, and by that, Jiraiya must have learned it from some other method. So, where did he learn it from? No one taught him. With his guess, there is only one possibility. The great toad sage from Myoboku Mountain. No one knows the strength and age of the great toad sage. It is the most mysterious existence from Mount Myoboku, and he could predict part of the future. The Son of Prophecy is one of his predictions. If we are talking about him, it wouldn't be impossible for Jiraiya to learn his summoning jutsu from him. Akaba, what are you thinking of? Tsunade looked at Akaban thoughtfully and anxiously asked. It's most unlikely that Jiraiya learned summoning jutsu without a teacher, and the most rational way is that some unknown holy being saw that Jiraiya is fit to be taught the summoning jutsu. Akaban explained his theory. After hearing the explanation, Orochimaru quickly asked, "Teacher, is it possible?" Hiruzen took out his cigarette, and after thinking for a moment, he said, "If what Akaban said were true, then it would be hard for the being to guide him through." These words only made his two other disciples more confused. Akaban glanced at Hiruzen and muttered inwardly. He must have known about this possibility a long time ago. And it looked like Hiruzen wasn't worried about Jiraiya, so why would he be looking for me other than finding Jiraiya? So, now Jiraiya is probably safe. Tsunade breathed a sigh of relief and could finally relax a bit. Well, but there are too many holy beings in this world, it's too difficult to know where he is, so I can only wait for him to come back. Hiruzen sighed and thought of something secretly. Mount Miboku. Surrounded by toad statues as far as eyes can see, a huge toad and a serpent are fighting with each other not far away. Jiraiya was dumbfounded. Where am I? Human child, you finally appeared. An old voice came from above. Jiraiya looked up and saw that there seemed to be a small green dot above the waterfall. And after he took a closer look. A talking toad. What the hell is this place? Jiraiya was still shocked. He hadn't learned summoning jutsu properly. Thus he didn't know what summoning beasts were, let alone how powerful the toad sage was. Yes, our elder master has foretold that a child will be lost in Mount Miboku. Fukasaku said lightly. However, before he finished his words, Jiraiya quickly interrupted. It was obvious that someone had told me this ninjutsu in my dream, and said that I could use this in a dangerous situation, but instead you brought me to this weird place, let me out. Jiraiya also looked angry and felt that he had been cheated. About that. Fukasaku was a little bit stunned for almost a half of a minute. This was different from what was told. Never mind. The most important thing is that you've come here to fulfill your destiny, and thus your name shall be placed on the scroll of Mount Miboku. A toad jumped out from the side. It was Shima, the remaining two great sage toads. Destiny. Yes, Ogi-sama predicted that you would come to Mount Miboku to learn our ninjutsu, said Shima. The more Jiraiya pondered, the more it weirdly sounded, and after a while, he said no. First, you lied to me, second, You brought me to this weird place, then you want me to learn your ninjutsu to fulfill the prophecy. Shimmer looked speechless. Is this the person that we waited for? It's not the same as Ogi-sama said. HMPH, if it wasn't for me who always draws comics and reads the plots, I must have been blinded by you. After reading Naruto, which was full of deceiving, he could see their hidden meaning and rejected the offer proudly. Stop talking nonsense. In this place, you can become stronger and accomplish many things you could not do before, and being here is the proof that you are the son of prophecy. Fukaku looked annoyed. What has he read until he became this rebellious? If softly persuading you didn't work, then we can use the hard way for you to comply, he thought. Ah, it's so boring without Jiraiya. Tsunad's fist feels itchy, knowing that Jiraiya may be fine, she feels relaxed. And missed her punching bag. Hey, you should behave more maturely, understand? Akaban looked so troubled. Jiraiya went to Mount Mibaku, so Akaban had to fill their lack of personnel for a mission. But why Hiruzen must find a replacement if he can do it himself? It is very stressful to take care of these two without taking a rest. Heh. Sorry for not being polite and girly like the girl called Tomoki. Also, you don't need to join us for the mission. Tsunade said with veins popping up her forehead. And walk faster with an ugly expression. If it weren't for Akaban's physique, she might have punched him on the stomach. That's not what I meant. Akaban shrugged, looking nonchalant. Orochimaru looked at Akaban suspiciously. He just felt something strange. If it weren't for Jiraiya's disappearance, he would suspect that Akaban in front of him was Jiraiya. Then again, Akaban's subtle movement reminded him of a clone. That dumb clone, he shouldn't talk too much. Akaban cursed the clone secretly. Akaban's shadow clone has an individual consciousness. Therefore he must pay more attention to his behavior. Otherwise, Orochimaru could notice it. He pondered for a moment and thought this mission might not be enough to let the clone do it. The shadow clone who was walking with the two slowed down and fell behind the other, then. Substitution jutsu. Akaban switches positions with his clone and quickly releases it. Orochimaru sensed something and quickly looked back at Akaban, but couldn't tell what was wrong. Hey, you're falling behind, slacker, don't let me come after you. Tsunade turned around with a fierce expression on her face. If he wanted to run away, she might give him some lessons. No, I just felt a bit tired. From the beginning, Akaban just wants to test his combination of shadow clone and genjutsu. He can't be lazy for now because, without him, these two will cause trouble sooner or later. He is a slacker, but he still cares about his teammates. By the way, what is our mission today? Akaban followed slowly, not knowing what their mission was. Is it to search for Jiraiya or to kill invaders? Sarutobi-sensei didn't explain it. It should have meant that we have to check it for ourselves. Yesterday we met a lot of ninjas. So we will check about some clues of Jiraiya today. Orochimaru pointed toward the forest ahead. I'll take a look. Akaban walked to the front, standing on the big tree to observe his surroundings. Yesterday, you were separated. Looking at the surrounding, he had a rough idea of what to expect. The forest is too suitable for the Hidden Mists ninja to ambush, and without Hiruzen's clone, they were left alone to deal with the trouble. Yes, we were. It was because of their Hidden Mist jutsu that the three of us got separated from each other. Tsunade explained the details. The traces have been cleaned up, and someone has likely come back afterward. Orochimaru walked around and speculated. It was the pursuit force. Tsunade didn't have the slightest surprise. The hidden mist village must be able to do it. Thus they became one of the 5 great ninja villages. It must be good if Tomoki is here right now. Akaban sighed in his heart. With her perception, all the hiding jutsu are all jokes. But then again, how cruel he is to ask a 6-year-old girl to go behind the enemy's line. Coming back to the current situation, Akaban carefully checks the possibility of clues around. What is that? Suddenly, he saw something strange. What? Tsunade looked at him curiously, and then looked at where he was pointing, and she immediately noticed something. Slowly walking over and getting closer, she saw something. It was the remaining corner of a page. What is this? Akaban asked. The torn paper has only one corner, but looking at Tsunade recalled carefully. Then her face suddenly turned red with embarrassment. What's the matter? It seems that this page belongs to Jiraiya. He must have dropped it before he disappeared. Orochimaru immediately recognized it. Jiraiya. Is it possible? Akaban was stunned, looked at the page, and thought it might be his work of art. He accidentally dropped it during spiritism. His brain made up a bunch of speculation, and his expression became weirder and weirder. No wonder Tsunade had this expression. What's the matter? Orochimaru was taken aback for a moment, wondering why they both looked embarrassed. Have you never seen Jiraiya's drawing? His drawing? I just knew that he could draw. Orochimaru was startled for a moment. He knew that for the first time, that idiot could draw. What do you think that fool's work is going to be? Tsunade gritted her teeth. As she recalls, Jiraiya became wiser from then on, such as peeking in the women's bathhouse. In fact, I'm quite curious. Orochimaru whispered. Knowing that Jiraiya can also draw comics, he couldn't help but think of what story that idiot will write. Don't bother with it. It's not a drawing, more like nightmare. Akaban thought about Jiraiya's terrifying drawing style and couldn't help but shudder. He doesn't have any talent for drawing. Let's not talk about it. Although we have this piece of paper, we can't track his smell. If only Sakumo was here. Tsunade changed the topic before it went too far. Akaban looked around and said, let's just keep looking. The rebellion's number and strength far exceed them, and they hopefully didn't want to meet their hideout on the way. That being said, it's better to search for clues slowly. Honestly, Akaban was curious, what was the expression of the rebellion when they saw Jiraiya's drawing? Somewhere in the Uzumaki village. A group of invaders gathered together, each holding a page in their hands, and pictures were drawn on each of the pages. The pages are passed around, and everyone looks at them with great fascination. There is no drawing jutsu in this world. Everyone's perception of drawing is just boring decoration. But seeing this kind of art for the first time baffled them. After a while, everyone put down the page and sighed dumbly. All of them finished reading the pages, but the story stops on a cliffhanger that makes everyone upset. Unfortunately, it only reached this far. If that white-haired boy hadn't disappeared, we could have kidnapped him to continue his work. One of the Chunin sighed in disappointment. He turned around after sighing in disappointment but shivered for an unknown reason. What happened? Everyone's expressions were very weird, and their eyes seemed to be gleaming, making him shudder. Master, I'll go out. I want to go as well. Pick me, Master. I will go and get the remaining scattered pages for all of us to know the rest of the story," said one of his subordinates fervently. The three of them split up and searched 100 steps away from their direction, and for Akaban, he wandered casually, then arrived at a small river. The Uzumaki village was surrounded by rivers. That way, the Hidden Mists ninja could escape easily through the rivers. Akaban approached the river, looking for the remaining traces. However, not far away, there was a rustling sound from bushes. What is it? Animal or? He was puzzled and approached cautiously, so he didn't startle it. As he got closer, Akaban saw a blue cloth flashed through the bushes. Hidden Mists ninja. He was caught off guard, but at the same time, he felt something strange. What is that person doing? Walking silently on the ground, he cast hand seals. Earth release, head hunting jutsu. From underground, the sounds of movement from above became clearer. Just before Akaban planned to drag him to the ground, the ninja seemed to be picking up something. Without any warning, he quickly launched an attack. Boom! The ground cracked, his hand grabbed the rebel's leg and dragged him to the ground. Ugh! His voice rang out in the quiet forest. Enemy! The other two seemed to notice the voice and rushed toward the source immediately. When they arrived at the scene, they saw Akaban's clone focusing a kunai on the rebel's throat, while the real Akaban was washing his hands from the river with a disgusted expression. What's the situation? Orochimaru was slightly faster than Tsunade and reached Akaban first. Akaban rubbed his hands vigorously, sighed, and said, "It's hard to put in words, just look over there." After hearing this, he turned to look at the rebel. You are Konoha's ninjas." The rebel looked at them, ashamed. Why the hell does a Chunin like him easily beaten by a kid? But he didn't dare to say another word after reminding his position. Did you just catch a live Hidden Mists ninja? Tsunade was baffled, seeing the Hidden Mists ninja stuck on the ground. He was busy doing something, and Akaban attacked him in surprise. Orochimaru calmly explained the situation. Yeah, it was thanks to Jiraiya's work. Akaban added, while still rubbing his arms with water vigorously. His hands didn't touch those, but the thought of it alone made him have goosebumps. If he weren't on the outside, he would immediately take a long bath. The most depressing thing is that this rebel is treasuring such a thing. That is absurd. This is an insult to the arts. What do you mean? Tsunade was confused when she heard it. I mean, have you seen a white-haired kid? Akaban didn't want to explain it much more and turned his attention to ask the captive rebel. No, as a matter of fact, we are currently looking for him too. The rebel explained. Next question, where is your gathering point? Akaban asked. I won't say that, otherwise, the leader will kill me, he said in fear. Your life is in our hands. Yes, your leader might want to kill you, but I'll assure you that we will do it first before him. Orochimaru licked his lips. By the rebel's words, at least it means that the enemy is organized, and a leader is leading them. If you don't say it, I will castrate you. Akaban threatened viciously. Castration. There was a look of fear on the rebel's face. If he is going to be castrated, then what is the point of living? But when he thought about what the leader will do to him, he immediately shut his mouth. It seems that there is only one way. As soon as the voice fell, Akaban's clone, who was holding the kunai, slit his throat viciously. After a scream of despair, he found himself still alive. Akaban appeared in front of him. Genjutsu. Can you tell me now? Akaban's voice rang in his ears. I won't say anything. He still had some doubts in mind. As a result, he immediately died once more. Endless death illusion, but all the pain that he went through is real as if he already died a dozen times. Pain and endless torture. What kind of genjutsu is this? Even as a Chunin, he never encounters an enemy with this terrifying genjutsu. Kurama's 5 senses of control. Akaban said faintly, I am still a kid, and I haven't polished this ninjutsu well enough. That being said, I will use you as my guinea pig. No. Not again. Just kill me already. When he heard the word Kurama, his heart trembled in fear. Only someone with extreme talent will acquire it. For example, this time, Akaban used Hell Viewing Jutsu, but all the pain was transferred with the 5 senses of control that made it all felt real. The Kurama's successor of this talent is a nightmare to face on the battlefield, and after he experienced it himself, he knew that Akaban is more terrifying than any other. Killing you gains me nothing. Rest assured, if I calculated it right, it would take at least 100 deaths inside the illusion to hurt your real body, so, how many are now? Akaban's eyes were cold and full of killing intent. Okay. I'll spill it out. Our hideout is on the mountain on the upper reaches of the river. There is a cave there. He was so terrified that he explained it while stuttering. The information came out like beans. If I know that you lied to me, I'll double your torture. Akaban said, directly letting the clone stun the rebel with the kunai's handle. At this moment, he saw Orochimaru and Tsunade looking at him in horror. What's the matter? Good question. Orochimaru complained secretly in his heart but didn't know where to start. Tsunade took a deep breath and carefully asked, if you can control it, will it leave a wound after 100 of death? I was just bluffing, and no, it will not leave any wound, only the trauma will remain. Akaban shook his head. If I'm not mistaken, you used the Hell Viewing Jutsu. Hell Viewing Jutsu can also be combined with the 5 senses of control. Yeah, but I'm still doing a trial and error. Akaban nodded and explained, and at the same time, winked at the shadow clone, indicating that he would take the person back to the Uzumaki village. In this situation, living prisoners are far more useful than corpses. Orochimaru listened and couldn't help but sighed. He had recently asked Hiruzen about the 5 senses of control, so he knew some of its details. The 5 senses of control is indeed strong, but the clan's awakening rate is very low. From their first generation to the present, the awakener of the Kekkei Genkai can be counted by one hand. The combination of an ordinary genjutsu and the 5 senses of control is something that only Akaban can do even among his predecessors. As expected of Akaban, Orochimaru was shocked, and at the same time thought another thing. Akaban's slacking attitude might be an act to hide his hard work practicing his ninjutsu. Coincidentally, Tsunade also had this suspicion. When Akaban saw their expressions, he knew that they seemed to have some misunderstanding of him. The predecessor of the Kurama clan has tried it far long before him, but they found that the fusion couldn't transfer the pain into reality. Thus they've changed their research into something applicative and simpler. Therefore, Akaban's method is only to imitate part of the effect of the genjutsu with his Kekkei Genkai. However, seeing the shocked look on their faces, Akaban decided not to say a word. Shouldn't we report it first to Sensei? Akaban looked troubled. Once they know the hideout of the Hidden Mists ninja, the other two want to go there to confront them head-on. Let's check them first from outside. We won't go in, Tsunade said excitedly. I'm convinced that you've said that before. Akaban murmured secretly in his heart. He looked at Orochimaru, hoping that he had a better thought of the situation. Orochimaru thought of something for a moment, and explained, I think that Sensei asked us to come here because he wants to test us again like before, so it wouldn't be a problem if we keep checking the hideout first. Orochimaru is just as reckless as her. Akaban sighed lightly, and the two didn't care about his reasonable advice. At this moment, they have already set off, ready to go to the rebels' hideout. Seeing his teammates had left him, Akaban can only follow them even if he knew it would be a bad idea. The hideout was located on the upper reaches of the river, and they saw a mountain not long before they went there. It isn't far away, Orochimaru whispered to Akaban. There must be a Chunin as their leader, I supposed, so we can't go further than this. Akaban just doesn't want to throw his life away, and having to face a Chunin is like approaching a death sentence. Akaban-kun, living a life that is too easy cannot bring improvement, and don't you think this is a good opportunity? Orochimaru said it while licking his lips. He looked like he was ready for everything. Opportunity? Do you think their leader is retarded? Akaban rudely retorted. For him, one retarded teammate like Jiraiya's is enough. I'm not sure, so we should check it out. Orochimaru pointed to the front. Akaban felt something and then looked up. There, he noticed some bushes shrugging. By that time, he realized. His opponents who have never seen real art must be obsessed with Jiraiya's comic. Wait. I have a plan. Akaban analyzed his situation smoothly, then quietly stepped back to hide. What are you talking about? Tsunade was confused. But then she saw Akaban sitting down and quickly swiped the pen. Drawing. She leaned over, and when she saw what he was drawing, her cheeks flushed red from embarrassment and also from anger. And chakra suddenly surgery on her body, channeling it through her hand, ready to punch Akaban to a pulp. Tsunade, don't do it. Orochimaru hurriedly grabbed Tsunade. He knew how terrifying this girl's fist was. If Jiraiya had not been able to beat him last time, it might have been dead. I also don't like this kind of painting, but I want to prove that Jiraiya's stuff is completely rubbish. After Akaban draws it completely, he clips it on the drawing board and waits for it to dry. After he finished painting, Tsunade glanced at it and found that it truly looked amazing, more erotic and seductive style. Even as a woman, she wanted to read it a bit. That's it. Orochimaru, who also finished reading it, just realized that Akaban had no intention to continue drawing. I said, I don't like this kind of art. One page is enough to deal with these invaders. Akaban said proudly. What is your next move? It looked like Tsunade had a better understanding of his plan. I'll summon a shadow clone in disguise, and then go there to show them the drawing. After that, we will wait for the signal. If suddenly my clone is forced back to me, it means we must retreat immediately. With such a dangerous task, his shadow clone is a perfect subject for it. This is the best plan that I've thought of. Tsunade and Orochimaru looked at each other and nodded in response. As they instinctively agreed at one thing. Akaban is a dependable person in times of crisis, just as their teacher told them. Akaban cast his shadow clone, then used transformation jutsu to disguise the clone as one of the ninjas before. Akaban handed over the drawing. Then the clone looked at it dumbfounded. He knew that even if he returned, the drawing wouldn't return with him. Go now. I will remember your sacrifice. There is nothing more humiliating other than holding an erotic drawing for some pervert invaders. But he won't say anything else. The clone took the drawing and went to the cave entrance. Passing by the bush, he glanced at them and saw those invaders were still reading Jiraiya's comic obsessively. Without daring to interrupt their doing, Akaban's clone continued to move forward until reaching the mountain, and no one came to stop or probe him. They don't do anything to me, so why the hell are they so scared to come here? He secretly complained. With only a few pages that he held, such an erotic story could cause an uproar. Thus he must handle it with care. The greatest physiological weapon. The clone shook his head and continued to move forward. Then a fire appeared, followed by a narrow cave entrance. The cave was camouflaged, and it was difficult for ordinary people to detect it without looking closely. Just stepping into the cave, he said, "Boss, it's me." "What is it?" "I've sent someone to search outside and found the remaining pieces of that white-haired kid, but he couldn't catch him, and I came to give it to you," the clone said respectfully. "Another page." "Hand it to me." The leader walked out from inside, and after receiving it, his face looked surprised. After just a few glances, he was ready to keep on reading, but unfortunately, there is only one page of it. "Ah, damn it, you only got this page?" he asked irritably. "Yes," Akaban said with shame. "Where did you find it?" "He found it by the river." The words that the clone said were half-truths, leading the leader to go check it by himself. "There is only one person there." "Yes, boss, he seems to have separated with his friends, perhaps because of his strange ninjutsu from before." The clone continued to explain. The leader was struggling to endure it, but he was moved when he heard that there was only one of them. He thought, if he can capture the boy, not only he can get the next pages, he can also use him as trading with the Konoha. "I was catching two birds in one shot." "Take me there to see it." "Yes." "Bingo." The clone turned around and immediately led the way, but after a few steps, he asked with some worry, "Boss, what if Konoha's ninja found this place while we were going outside? Even the Uzumaki village doesn't know that we were here, so how can Konoha's ninja know this place if they only have been here for a few days? It's impossible. Besides, does this matter?" He sneered. Konoha's strength was strong. So if they find out his hideout, he will leave his comrade without a second thought. What a nasty person. "Yes, sir. According to Akaban's guess, there should be no other Jounin here, and their leadership is fragile. This is our opportunity. We have a chance to win." Thinking of this, he didn't imagine that he could lure the leader himself to go outside alone, while the leader seemed to be close with the ninja whom he took the form of, with his surname of Yanagawa. It works. Akaban just happened to be able to see his clone successfully lure the leader out of his hideout. Good, I can't wait to put some sense to that leader. Tsunade clenched her fist. It was all because of the invaders that ruined the happiness of Uzumaki. Even though she is not from the Uzumaki clan, it's her relationship with her grandma that made her feel that way. Calm down. We have to wait for now. Orochimaru held tight his kunai. This is a chance to prove themselves on how they could overcome their situation. Akaban's clone leads the way with the leader to the river. Then he waved his hand as a signal for everyone to start stalking behind. Orochimaru and Tsunade left instantly and headed for the mountain. "You two should be enough to fight him. I'll stay here." Akaban sat cross-legged in a hidden position down the mountain while observing the movement around the hideout. He started to restore his chakra. He had wasted too much chakra after 2 consecutive summonings of his shadow clones. On the other side, the clone and the leader had arrived at the river where he told him before. So, you met him here. Something felt wrong. He was suspicious but did not do anything because he is obsessed with the erotic comic. Yes, boss, that kid had put up a good fight with our man, and he managed to escape leaving his pages scattered around here. The clone made up some false details. The leader stepped on the liquid under his foot and understood in his heart why his man was ambushed. Stupid. You aren't even able to catch one boy, shame of you. Yes, boss, I'm very sorry. The clone must keep acting like his subordinate and admit his mistake. After that, the clone pointed to the location of Uzumaki village and said, he was able to escape when we chased him near the village border. That's where we stop because it was too risky. With our power, we can't just enter the village for the time being. When it comes to the village, even the leader must admit their lack of manpower. But here was the problem: if he didn't dare to enter the Uzumaki village, how could he delay the plan? Just thinking about it makes him a headache. To let the leader return to the hideout will put Orochimaru and Tsunade at great risk. In any case, he must stall for a little longer or give them a warning. But Yanagawa, what are you thinking? The leader asked lightly. The clone suddenly trembled. He felt some murderous aura targeting him. Did he suspect me? He made a decisive decision, instantly forming a seal with both hands, and used substitution jutsu to change his positions. Water release water dragon bullet jutsu. The huge chakra surged, and a magnificent water dragon jumped out of the river, just in the blink of an eye. It was too fast. Just before the clone managed to escape, he was hit by the water dragon. But at the same time, he was able to release his last ninjutsu. Hell viewing jutsu. The clone had disappeared. Akaban felt it instantly. He was hit by the water dragon, insane. The water dragon is B-level ninjutsu. It belongs to the powerful water release that only a Chunin can use. Not to mention, he was only using a shadow clone. It was an inevitable outcome. More than that, Chunin's combat experience is far beyond him. Complete defeat. Akaban quickly got up and headed up to aid his teammates. Now he had acknowledged the strength of their leader. He had to finish all the invaders on the hideout as soon as possible. Not long after. Boom! A loud noise came from the corner of the mountain. Needless to say, Tsunade couldn't hold back, and her fist was stronger. Akaban quickly approached there, and a moment later, another big tree was broken, and the tall trunk fell straight down. That was too much. The physique and chakra of the Senju clan are almost abnormal. Those who were unlucky enough to take a direct hit by her will be dead in an instant. A trace of cold sweat appeared on Akaban's forehead. Tsunade, the leader, has taken notice of our plan. We should retreat. After a command, Akaban quickly moved in another direction. What? Damn it. Tsunade heard it but tried to catch up with the ninja and kill him with a full blow, and then she was about to find Orochimaru. However, they turned around and found a figure at the foot of the mountain quickly approaching. Ugh, we got no more time. I'll finish it. Tsunade shouted out, and then ran up the mountain quickly, reaching the top of the cave in a short time. She lands a clean hit on the cave entrance. Boom! With a loud noise, the cave couldn't bear the huge force. With another punch, the cave collapsed. Retreat now. After yelling, Tsunade fled directly to Uzumaki village without looking back. Excellent. Akaban was surprised that she managed to block the rebels' entrance and then retreat towards Uzumaki village. Although it was unclear if Hiruzen was secretly protecting them from the strength analysis, the combat prowess of the Jounin was far from what they could handle. On hearing the signal, Orochimaru immediately gave up his fight and quickly retreated to Uzumaki village. However, 3 Genin dares to mess up with me and my hideout. Who do you think you're facing right now? For I am Akima Takaichi, the leader of the invaders. An indifferent voice was heard, and a thick fog filled the surrounding area. The hidden mist jutsu covered the entire mountain. Orochimaru looked hesitant, and after knowing what was wrong, he quickly evacuated toward Akaban and the others. We have to go back right now. Akaban also noticed the fog that was gradually spreading. If he didn't go back at this time, it would be a death sentence for them. How can I find Orochimaru in the mist? Tsunade was anxious. She couldn't save Jiraiya, and if she couldn't save Orochimaru as well, she would break down. Follow my lead. Akaban made it simple and led the way directly. The fog is the hunting ground of hidden mist ninja. Akima is a Jounin level ninja, but he was baffled by how Akaban was able to talk and navigate in the fog. Although Orochimaru hasn't trained in this certain situation, he had a very strong memory, and he clearly remembered the location of the mountain road and Akaban's last location. He used both the instantaneous jutsu and the substitute jutsu, and he did not dare to stop. Whoosh! There was a faint sound, and Orochimaru immediately turned sideways, and at the same time made a big breakthrough with hand seals. The whirlwind flew out, and although the mist could not be blown away, the shurikens were blown down. Sheeing! There was a splash of water, and then Orochimaru sensed a chakra wave. Water release water bomb. Its power was outstanding. Orochimaru's face was slightly pale, and he couldn't move for a while. Just at this moment. Boom! A big tree fell from the fog, blocking the middle of Orochimaru and the opponent, and the water bomb was blocked by the trunk for a while. At this slight time frame, Orochimaru barely slipped away. You! The leader of the invaders was stunned and was slightly alarmed in his heart. He didn't think even Genin could stop him like this. Tsunade, who was about to attack, was stopped by Akaban's shout. Don't be reckless, we should plan first for what we should do next. The opponent's chakra has at most 10% left. We'll fight and retreat soon after, just enough time to deplete his chakra. He wouldn't dare to chase us again after that. Your part is important. Listen to my orders closely, don't act on your own. Akaban said calmly. I know. Tsunade looked solemn. With her extraordinary strength, she was facing a ninja with strength stronger than her. So she is invaluable in the plan. There are 10 Chunin in this hideout. We've taken out 6 of them. The remaining 4 will fight back anytime soon. We'd better retreat quickly. Orochimaru's voice was a little hoarse. Even though the 3 of them are undoubtedly geniuses from their generation, in terms of real combat experience, they are far behind their enemy. Being able to kill Chunin and solving exam problems are 2 different things. Next, listen to my instructions. Akaban's face was solemn as he ran to distinguish his position. The 3 of them quickly retreated, and at the same time, they paid an intense focus towards their surroundings. In this mist, both the Jounin and Chunin's could deliver a fatal blow to them without them knowing if they let their guard down even a little bit. Turn to the right and attack. As soon as the voice fell, Tsunade instantly struck out, striking the enemy's right side with a punch. Boom! Substitution. However, that piece of wood was blasted out by her huge force and put the enemy who got away trembling in fear. That was too terrifying. The attacked Chunin was baffled. Is she a genin? Orochimaru flew out shurikens, and at the same time, his hands formed seals. Wind release, Gale Palm. Gale Palm itself is not powerful, but it became devastating when combined with the shurikens. The Gale Palm was turning into a storm of steel blades. He used it not to kill the enemy but as a distraction. The three of them fought and ran, and it didn't take long for them to manage a safe distance. But suddenly, a figure swiftly approached. The leader, Akima Takaichi. Against a Jounin like him, there is no room for chit-chat. Because if they let their guard down just a millisecond, it could become a window for the Jounin to attack, so Akaban has no time to command his team, but fire release, fireball jutsu. The flames counter-attacked instantly when Akima's mist came over. What? Akima was shocked and was too late to dodge, and he got a direct hit by the huge fireball. Fireball jutsu is only C-grade ninjutsu, but the power that was released was tremendous. Akima couldn't figure it out. How was he able to master two good elements with such proficiency? And how was he able to see me through the hidden mist jutsu? This is impossible. He was going crazy just thinking about it, but he had another problem. He was hit hard by the fireball, so he used water ninjutsu. Water release, great waterfall. Ninjutsu needs a lot of chakra, and at the same time was very difficult to use, but when he hadn't finished his seal, he suddenly felt his chakra stagnate. What happened? Genjutsu. This kid can also use genjutsu. When Akima thought of the previous shadow clone, he realized everything in an instant. The shadow clone belongs to this kid. Underestimating them, his opponent made him pay the price. Then he tried to dispel the genjutsu. However, he found that he had failed. How is it possible? This genjutsu was from the Kurama clan. He couldn't believe it, and he felt dread, but then a sharp pain spread throughout his body, and the genjutsu suddenly dispelled. In the next second, he saw that a kunai was planted on his chest. I told you not to come back. Akaban panted, eyes bloodshot from the intense consumption of his chakra. It only happened in a few seconds, but so effective and deadly. Although it was revealed that he had escaped from the fireball. It was just an illusion from the beginning. You, what? Akima's eyes widened, but Akaban had already escaped, avoiding perishing with him since he knew that Jonin cannot be underestimated even in their death door. Soon after, he breathed his last breath. But after his death, the mist still won't disappear. You killed the leader. The remaining four Chunin couldn't believe it and looked at the leader who was lifeless on the ground. There is no way he is a genin. Even Orochimaru and Tsunade were equally shocked by Akaban's action. Genjutsu, fire, earth, Akaban had already mastered it all. From his power level, he had already surpassed a Jounin. Wasn't that enough for proof? Akaban's eyes were red, like a madman. Even if he used the 400 points accumulated in the system to exchange 8 points for chakra, and successfully used the 5 sense control on Akima at the end, he was still unable to turn all the genjutsu into reality damage. Otherwise, based on his character, it would never be possible for him to fight his enemy hand to hand. The four Chunin that were alive were terrified, and though who knows if the other two have also another terrifying ninjutsu. They don't dare to bet. They still want to live a little longer. Because if they died, their village wouldn't bother to take revenge for them. For them, they were all alone in this. Go, go. Seeing the four of them run away, Akaban gritted his teeth and did not faint, but took Orochimaru and Tsunade away steadily step by step. Orochimaru looked back, his eyes unwilling and resentful. What he hates is not the enemy, but instead himself that became farther behind Akaban. There is no doubt he is the genius of our time. Ah! Orochimaru smiled slightly. Akaban's Keki Genkai cannot be compared, but any other element can be learned by anyone. Tsunade was a little worried but also felt uncomfortable. She has no problem fighting against Chunin, her strength and chakra were unbeatable, but if she is fighting against a Jounin, she understood how powerless she was. Your strength alone is not enough. The words of the third Hokage echoed in her ears, and she truly understood the meaning now. Akaban's specialty is genjutsu, but did he only know genjutsu? That's what Tsunade used to think, but now she realized that Akaban had been trying to make up for his shortcomings. Their gap is too big. A thought flashed through both of them at the same time. Hurry up and take me away. Akaban's chakra was so consumed that it made his head feel like it was about to explode. And after barely supporting himself for a while, it was difficult for him to even walk, let alone retreat. Orochimaru and Tsunade immediately held his hand, urging him to escape to Uzumaki village with the instantaneous jutsu. Before they knew it, Akaban had passed out. What's the matter? On the way back, they soon ran into Hiruzen, who hurried over. Because he trusted the abilities of Akaban, Orochimaru, and Tsunade, he did not arrange any backup, but he could see Akaban's clone sent back the captivated Chunin, and he knew something was going to happen. Sensei, it was my fault. I was too impulsive and arrogant. Tsunade blamed herself. Without her reckless actions, Akaban wouldn't need to fight the Jounin. Akaban said we shouldn't go, but Orochimaru was half silent. He knew that Hiruzen could guess it from the beginning, so he didn't say much. You are too reckless. You think that the enemy is just going to watch when you destroyed their hideout. Thinking that your life is long. Hiruzen was furious and immediately went to check Akaban. At this time, there is no medical ninjutsu, but as a ninja doctor, he knows a lot, and he knows some medical skills. After checking, he heaved a sigh of relief and said, it's just that his chakra was exhausted, so he will be fine after taking some rest. Carefully tell me, what's going on? Hiruzen put Akaban's on his back and scolded him with a red face. We planned to use Akaban's clone to separate the Jounin with his allies. At first, the plan was successful, but then the enemy seemed to react and returned to the mountain. We were hunted down. Fortunately, Akaban was able to identify the enemy's movements in the hidden mist jutsu. Otherwise, we wouldn't survive this far. Tsunade said back and forth, still shuddering. After hearing this, Hiruzen interrupted and asked, you have cleaned up the traces of the scene? Orochimaru's expression was dull, and then he shook his head dejectedly. For a Jounin, these are flaws. They can track you back at any time and kill you all. Hiruzen said with a sneer. In your eyes, what is Jounin? At the same time, he secretly rejoiced. If Akaban had not mastered the third element of chakra, perhaps they would all be dead by now. Don't think about going out anymore, just stay in the village and reflect on your behavior. Just after waking up, Akaban heard the good news. Don't go out, it's too dangerous to go out. After facing just one Chunin, it forced him to use the fireball jutsu, which was his trump card. It also made him unwillingly spend all 400 points he saved up to exchange into chakra points just so that he wouldn't drop dead from chakra exhaustion. Which means he must save up from the beginning again. In the time of the Great War, there were many elites, and the battlefield was brutal. But after just one mere Chunin, Akaban had thought about it, but decisively dismissed the idea in favor of having some downtime. It took him a long time to get a break. Sensei, but Jiraiya. Tsunade was anxious. They couldn't go out now, and they have failed to find Jiraiya, but instead, risking their own lives by attacking the invaders' hideout. We have reached an agreement with the Uzumaki village. Soon, there will be ninjas from Uzumaki village to help find Jiraiya, Hiruzen said coldly. Tsunade, you are a very talented girl, therefore, I don't want you to die so young. Your life is as precious as any other life. Yes, sensei, I understand. Tsunade lowered her head, reflecting on her actions. Sensei, please train us more, please. Orochimaru's voice came afterward. Akaban did not move while lying on the bed, but his mind was full of thoughts. These two children were hit hard by their childish acts. But it is also a good thing since now they understand their mistakes and reflect on them. They will grow more responsible next time. This is a good lesson to learn. Very well, I am very pleased that you all have reflected. First of all, Tsunade. You need to learn to control your chakra, emotions, and strength. Orochimaru, you are excellent in all subjects. You've mastered your ninjutsu well enough, and with your intelligence, it would be a perfect combination. But now, you lack powerful and effective attack ability. Your next goal is to learn the wind release, vacuum wave. The first element that Orochimaru had learned was wind, so the goal given to him by Hiruzen is to continue to strengthen his foundation. However, Orochimaru had another idea. He didn't tell Hiruzen because he knew that he wouldn't agree to it. Next is Akaban. Get up, I'll say a few words with you alone. Hiruzen turned around and went into the house. Akaban's awake. Orochimaru was stunned, and then quickly ran into the house. Tsunade ran in quickly behind him and saw Akaban was still motionlessly lying on the bed, showing no sign of recovery. Ahem. Sensei, I just woke up. Akaban sat up awkwardly. The vigilance of Hiruzen was too high. He controlled his heart rate and breath to be slow, as if he was still asleep, but Hiruzen could see through it. Heh. Don't underestimate a Hokage like me. Hiruzen sneered and then waved his hand to let Orochimaru and Tsunade know to leave them alone to talk. Then he sat down next to the bed, smoking a cigarette, looking melancholy, and stayed silent for a moment. Was he waiting for me to say something? Akaban muttered in his heart but still said nothing. For a while, the room fell into silence. Hiruzen had no choice but to smoke, pretending to be choked, and then said gently, "Oh. Akaban, do you have any other opinions on the village?" "Nope, what made you think that?" Akaban replied immediately. "You have 5 senses of control, and you have a high level of genjutsu, surpassing anyone in the village. You have a tremendous talent. You can master 3 elements of chakra, and you could use B-level ninjutsu, like shadow clones, when you were just a student at the academy. Even your physique is among the top from the Kurama clan." Hiruzen praised him continuously, making Akaban more and more clueless. What should I reply to that? But moreover, you never told us. You're out of touch with everyone, so, Who are you hiding it from? Hiruzen continued with a sigh and looked melancholy. A Chunin is not an easy enemy to deal with, even if he was careless. Sensei, Akaban was at a loss for words, not knowing how to answer. Who am I hiding from? He couldn't find the answer. Maybe it was from Danza, or maybe an unknown enemy in the future. Hiruzen was smoking a cigarette, and went on, I didn't understand it at first until I read your comics. My comics. Akaban was even more confused about what Hiruzen was trying to say. Following that, he heard Hiruzen say, in your eyes, we are the people in your drawing, and you are the author who draws the world into your comic. I know it is something that you cherish, but it will also cause you to lose something, your playtimes, your friends, or your training. And I hope you can stop drawing comics for now, and focus on other things. At first, Akaban was shocked. He was thinking that his secret was being discovered. But when he heard the second half of the sentence, the tension and fear within him calmed down a bit, and he said calmly, Sensei, I think it might be as you said. It's good to hear that. This news might excite you. I will send you back to Konoha within a few days. Use it to spend time with your family. Hiruzen was done talking, so he smoked once more, and left the room. As he watched him leave, Akaban's wildly beating heart gradually calmed down. Sure enough, Sarutobi-sensei thought that I had awakened the Edo because of my dedication to the comic or whatever. I must be more careful from now on. Akaban frantically reviewed himself. However, it was just a false alarm. Some of what Hiruzen said was right. He treated everyone around him just like a person seeing a painting. Thus, he needs to work on it. Now that the agreement between Konoha and Uzumaki village has been settled, everyone can go back home now. During the trip back to Konoha, Akaban concluded the meaning of what Hiruzen said, was to help him handle the situation with Danza. Danza Shimura will never back down, and he does things according to his will. Within the current situation, there is only one thing that he might be doing right now. Engaging his roots. The holidays are not easy to come by, so we should cherish them. Without any mission assigned to them, Akaban finally got up to breathe in the fresh air while watching the training of Orochimaru and Tsunade. Of course, it's mainly Tsunade. Akaban hasn't grown his relationship with Orochimaru recently, and they occasionally lock horns, but he was quite experienced with Tsunade. The training venues of the two were different. Tsunade needs a larger open space to control her strength, and the vacuum wave that Orochimaru needs to learn needs some targets. After looking around, Akaban found Tsunade outside the village. Tsunade didn't ignore Hiruzen's advice and trained hard to get control over her strength. But because mastery over her strength cannot be done as easily as she wishes, various sized pits and fist marks surround her on all sides. Akaban lamented slightly. He didn't know how Tsunade trained in the original plot, so he couldn't do anything to help. He knew that if she could control it, she could become the greatest medical ninja, but looking at her right now, she still has a ways to go. Orochi, it's you, Akaba, you are willing to go out of your room. What a surprise. Tsunade's voice and expression didn't display the slightest shock. Because of her failure to control her strength, she was really in no mood to make any jokes. So you thought that knowing me, I wouldn't go out of my room? Akaban smiled disapprovingly. I'm not in the mood to say this right now. Sensei asked me to train my control, but I got no clue how. Tsunade was frustrated. Her chakra control is not weak, but to control her chakra perfectly, a more refined technique is needed. Currently, she is nowhere near perfect. I'll give you some advice, Akaban said while swiftly opening his drawing. It didn't take long for Tsunade to be affected by his genjutsu and found herself in another world. Then, she saw a figure. It was another her. When she was still amazed, she found that the other her punched the ground repeatedly, making countless rocks fly around, creating a very stunning sight. Look at the effect of this punch. How is it different from your own? Akaban's voice came. Tsunade leaned closer and looked closely at the effect of the punches, and soon she was shocked. At a glance, there seemed to be no difference. But the crack in the ground from the impact of the punch was very consistent, and even the periphery suffered an equal amount of damage. To achieve such a level required a very frightening level of control. That's right. What Akaban showed her was the Sakura punch Tsunade created herself in the future. This punch simply takes the chakra control to a whole other level. Tsunade marveled at Akaban's ability to use his ninjutsu, but at the same time, she was extremely distressed. Doesn't that mean it needs much stronger control? You said that you're clueless. I just gave you a clue, the rest is up to you to figure out. After Akaban finished speaking, the illusion collapsed. How to learn it was her problem to solve. This is the process she must go through. But she is too impatient now. If he intervenes more than this, it would be bad for her. You are right. There is already a clue. I'll figure it out myself. If it's just control, I can do it. Tsunade took a deep breath, then jumped up and continued her training. Boom! Her movements were still full of flaws. At first, Tsunade was a little impatient, but after a few tries, she gradually figured some tricks, and her chakra control became more stable. Akaban was not surprised by her progress. After all, she will be one of the 3 legendary Chunin. It was coming from her personality and mentality. She just needs a little guidance. After she settles down, she will slowly get used to it, and everything will come naturally. It's amusing when you're serious. He stepped aside, lying on the grass while watching her. The noise came one after another, but the sounds and movements were becoming more and more consistent. It would be safe to assume that she had made great progress. She began to control her strength and no longer spends chakra unnecessarily. Akaban spent the afternoon with the ear-filling roar until evening. Ha 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 ha, I finally made it. With a big laugh, she quickly bombarded the ground with one punch, and every punch had equal power. That was just the first step. And now you have another mission. After Akaban finished speaking, he yawns, looking sleepy. Although this place is only a barren land, it still belongs to Uzumaki village, and she smashed it until it became unrecognizable, so she needs to restore it back to its former state. I know, you don't need to remind me. Tsunade smiled and started to push back the surrounding soil and rocks. As Akaban said, controlling her power is only the first step. If she wants to use the full potential of chakra control, she must control it while exploding the force at one point. Moreover, real chakra control is not just relying on fists but can be used anywhere within her body. In short, Tsunade wasn't even close. Well, the only benefit with so many holes here is that, in the future, you can plant some trees. Akaban stood up and looked around while joking. Tsunade surprisingly did not refute, but was silent for a moment and said, "That's good, at least it shows that I'm useful." Ha, don't be arrogant. Akaban kicked some dirt in with his foot, pretending to be helping her clean up the mess. That's true. At least I can fight a Chunin. Much better than that idiot, Jiraiya. Tsunade said with a smile. Jiraiya, he is really stupid for a lot of reasons. Akaban seemed to have a feeling, glanced back, and then agreed with her, knowing Jiraiya's character. A moment later. Damn your flat chest, talking behind my back again. An angry voice came from the forest behind, and a figure jumped out of the tree in the next second and revealed his identity. Jiraiya. Tsunade was surprised and delighted, but followed by another burst of anger. Flat chest. What a joke. I just haven't developed it. She clenched her fist and about to rush towards him, but she took a deep breath and told herself, huff, restraint. Hey, Jiraiya. Where did you go? Akaban asked while smiling gladly. Do not mention it. A weird place. I was forced to learn some weird ancient ninjutsu, and I still haven't figured it out yet. Jiraiya also looked distressed and sighed, I have to go back there within a few days. Oh, that's just your style, stupid. But to meet that kind of thing, all of a sudden, is a once-in-3-lifetime blessing, you should cherish it. Tsunade's words were harsh, but they also implied that she was concerned about him. Jiraiya didn't notice it at all. Instead, he was angry with Tsunade's harsh words and retorted, blessing. I don't need to rely on such a place. Okay, but Jiraiya, you must learn it diligently, don't waste such luck. Akaban interrupted their meaningless quarrel and continued to ask, did you say that someone forced you to practice? Yes. That place is called Mountain Myoboku. There was a group of weird toads, I couldn't believe it. First, there are such strong toads in this world. Jiraiya remembered some of it with a bit of fear on his face. Although his whole body was sore from the training, he had to admit that he made rapid progress during his time in the mountain. Mount Myoboku, huh? Akaban nodded, getting the answer that he already knew. The sacred Mount Myoboku is full of mystery, and only a few people know of their existence. Yeah, and I even saw a super scary big snake there. Jiraiya showed off excitedly. Big snake. With so many terrifying beasts on Mount Myoboku, there are still snakes who dare to go there. Tsunade's surprise was authentic. Although a snake is a toad predator, in a fight with a big toad and a big snake, it was too much for her to swallow. If Mount Myoboku is a sacred place for the toads, and that kind of serpent dares to go there, it might also be a sacred place for the other intelligent beasts. Akaban said his guess. Indeed. I asked the toad, and it told me that the snake was from the Ryuchi cave. Jiraiya replied. Ryuchi cave is as mysterious as Mount Myoboku. Akaban sighed lightly, and couldn't help but envy the Sanin's luck. Ryuchi cave, Myoboku mountain, and Shikotsu forest are all the sacred places where the three beasts are located, which were met by Sanin in the future. They will act as the protagonists of the Second Ninja World War. However, it is not bad to get two names at once, and the corresponding information will appear in the comics. He secretly said in his heart. By the way, where's Orochimaru? I feel stronger now, I want to test it on him. Jiraiya looked very arrogant and wanted to find someone to fight. He first wanted to challenge Tsunade, but when he jumped down from the tree and saw the big holes on the ground, he immediately stopped his foolish thoughts since he still wanted to live. Akaban was speechless. He didn't know whether to say it or not. Just like Naruto changed Sasuke's character when he became stronger, maybe Jiraiya would make a change in Orochimaru's character, which was already a little broken, with his refound strength. Unlike the original plot, Jiraiya now has the influence of Akaban, which caused minor changes in his personality and mindset. So maybe with Jiraiya's change he can influence Orochimaru's decisions in the future. What will Orochimaru do when he sees Jiraiya? He was already feeling the pressure from Akaban surpassing him, so with his teammate added to that, how would he react? Tsunade also considered this point and did not answer for a while. Just when the two of them were lost in thought, a voice of Hiruzen came. He is on the mountain behind Uzumaki village. If you want to find him, then go. Thank you, Sensei. Wait until I defeat Orochimaru, and then I'll tell you everything that has happened. Jiraiya immediately jumped up to the treetops and headed towards the back of the mountain. Will they be okay, Sensei? Tsunade asked worriedly. It will be fine, don't underestimate Orochimaru. Hiruzen said while smoking his pipe. Perhaps. Akaban did not refute, and the future is inherently uncertain. Deep within his heart, he wants to know what happened to the Chunin during their training times. The times Orochimaru is still very young and different from the future, before Orochimaru became evil. Orochimaru, Jiraiya-sama is back. The voice came first before the person arrived. The loud shouts spread all over, and Orochimaru, who was practicing his ninjutsu, stopped. Oh, the idiot is back, at least, he looks very different. A smile appeared on his face. There has been a lot of bad news recently, so the comeback of Jiraiya has lightened the mood a little. Of course, this genius has trained on Mount Myoboku, and now I've surpassed you. Jiraiya said it proudly. Mount Myoboku. Orochimaru was startled slightly. It seems that the teacher and Akaban were right, and Jiraiya was indeed being chosen by a certain sacred spirit. Then he inspected Jiraiya from the bottom to the top. He doesn't seem to be different from before. Come on, I'll show you myself what real talent is. Jiraiya taunts Orochimaru arrogantly while clenching his fist. That's what I want. Orochimaru chuckled softly. He had just completed his training and had just mastered the ninjutsu, and he needs someone to test his new ability. Although he doesn't know how far Jiraiya has improved, he is undoubtedly a decent opponent. On the other side. Sensei, who do you think will win? Akaban sat on the stool and watched the live broadcast comfortably through Hiruzen's crystal ball. Hiruzen did not answer but only kept smoking from his pipe. Who will win? To be honest, he didn't have the answer right now, because he didn't know what Jiraiya had learned. Tsunade was shocked. This is her first time seeing Hiruzen use his telescope jutsu. Sensei, is this? She pointed to the crystal ball, a little in disbelief. Hiruzen's face was slightly stiff, and his hand holding the cigarette pipe shook, almost shaking the fire-hot soot into his hand. This ninjutsu. He thought about it, on how to put it simply for Tsunade. As I wrote in the comics, this crystal ball is ninjutsu called the telescope jutsu. Akaban helped Hiruzen to explain it. No, I'm not asking about that. With this kind of ninjutsu, there must be some other usage. Tsunade clenched her fists and looked at the crystal ball suspiciously. Ah ha ha, Tsunade, how can you think of me that way? You wouldn't think of me doing that kind of stuff, don't you? Hiruzen said it a bit sweaty. What do I think? I think you did the same thing as what Jiraiya did. No wonder you took him as your apprentice. Tsunade is surprisingly quick to catch up, and her sensitivity is quite strong with this kind of thing. The mood was awkward in an instant. Hiruzen smoked, thinking about how to repair his prestige as a teacher. Akaban stared at Tsunade and said, "Tsunade, remember. Restraint and control." Huff. Taking a deep breath, she gradually loosened her emotion. But, seeing her reaction before seemed to warn Hiruzen to be more careful next time, very careful. Cough cough, look at them. Hiruzen awkwardly changed the topic. If not, he doesn't know how long he could maintain his remaining dignity any longer. Hiruzen vowed deeply in his heart that he would never show this ninjutsu in front of Tsunade ever again after remembering that Jiraiya was hospitalized because of it. While they were arguing about this, in the crystal ball, Jiraiya and Orochimaru battle was already at its peak. Look! Akaban interrupted their thoughts. Let the two people turn their eyes back to the crystal. Vacuum wave. Tsunade was baffled. It's only this afternoon they began their training, so Orochimaru mastering the vacuum wave in that short frame proved that his talent was indeed undoubted. Not only ninjutsu but also a gap in combat experience. Hiruzen tried to give a thorough explanation of it. Jiraiya was also forced into the corner by the vacuum wave. Moreover, Orochimaru still has a lot of stamina to spare. Wind release, vacuum wave. Boom! With a loud noise, the vacuum wave slightly missed Jiraiya's head and blasted a rock behind him into debris. You lost. Orochimaru said it nonchalantly. Jiraiya was still shocked and in disbelief. Afterward, he touched his nose angrily and said, I haven't summoned Gamabunta, otherwise you are far from being a winner. Gamabunta is still at his young age right now, but even though it's still young his strength is already sufficient. However, Jiraiya didn't want to rely on anyone. You have quite notable progress, but I don't just hang around in your absence. Orochimaru consoled his heart. Akaban snuck a glance at Tsunade. Both of them were so proud of themselves, obviously caring about Jiraiya, yet they made such a face. This genius will surpass you, just you wait and see. Jiraiya was also lost for a while. Anyway, he was used to losing and he didn't care about winning or losing this match, he simply just wanted to prove his progress. But Orochimaru is different. If before he didn't need to use ninjutsu and could defeat Jiraiya with physical skills alone, but now he knew he couldn't do it. Jiraiya's improvement was not to be underestimated. Everyone is making progress. He looked at the mountain and said in his heart, not enough, I am not strong enough. Before, he had no direction, but now he has set goals ahead, and this small improvement is insignificant. Anyway, I'll just say that he is still as arrogant as before, but you proved your point. Tsunade said while curling her lips. However, she had to admit that now Jiraiya is getting closer to their level. Jiraiya's current strength can be regarded as the best among a normal genin, and you guys thought that he was weak because you have already surpassed the strength level of Chunin, including you Akaban, thus I'm proud of your progress. Hiruzen said it with a smile. Each of these students has their strengths, which made him very pleased. Of course, he couldn't admit that he was helpless with Jiraiya before, and didn't know how to teach by his aptitude. The only aspect that Jiraiya was good at was impossible for him to teach. Fortunately, now, Jiraiya also got his chance to prove himself. Okay, but now it's his time to bite the dust. Akaban yawned, thinking that he could see a more exciting battle, but it seems Jiraiya still needs more time to improve. That's right, he is still below us. Tsunade said with a gleeful smile. Hiruzen cancelled his telescope jutsu and prepared for their lunch. Akaban was already eager to eat, but he knew that he needed to wait. If it hadn't been for Jiraiya and Orochimaru who still hadn't arrived, he would have already started his lunch in advance. But before long, there was a sound of footsteps outside the door. There they are. Akaban immediately rolled up his sleeves, ready to eat. However, the first thing Jiraiya jumped in was not to eat, but to come over to find Akaban. Akaba, I found this by the river, take a look. What is it? Akaban turned his head, but already grabbed a prawn and peeled it. Look at this character, drawing style. They are truly exceptional, but unfortunately, I only got fragments of it. Jiraiya also sat next to him, and mysteriously took out a piece of paper. The paper was broken, but it was pieced together by Jiraiya into a full page of the picture. You are a master in comics, can you help me find out whose work this is? This, how do I know about this? Akaban was dazed and answered in denial. This thing was hit by the water dragon bullet, but how possibly it could still be collected? Also, how much free time he has? Hey, isn't this? Orochimaru was about to talk about the author of the page but was held back by Tsunade. Let me see. Hiruzen took a glance and unconsciously drooled the moment he saw it. Ha! Tsunade's eyes were fierce, like a tiger. I was just curious about what kind of drawing that is. Hiruzen could only restrain his intention and stepped back with regret. If Jiraiya hadn't asked whose work but instead, a little firmer, like, your drawing, Akaban would have been unable to deny it. Now, he pretended that those lewd drawings weren't written by him and just sat there quietly, eating seafood. This drawing technique, oh, what a waste of talent. I've searched along the riverbank, but I've only been able to collect these pieces. Jiraiya treated the remaining pieces like treasure. What are you going to do with those? Tsunade asked while looking disgusted. If it hadn't been for Akaban to remind her to be restrained, she would have rushed over to tear that page instantly. You wouldn't understand such art. This is the pinnacle of art and a reminiscence of genius to pursue learning, Jiraiya explained fluently. Orochimaru was speechless at this shameless teammate. As a fellow of the same genre, Hiruzen sighed lightly. Pointing to the table, he said, eat up now, or else Akaban will eat it all by himself. Don't say nonsense, sensei, I only ate 2 shrimps. Akaban didn't dare to share another word with Jiraiya. If he knew that Akaban still had the remaining pages, he wouldn't be able to come back to Konoha alive. It's all right, you can eat everything. Hiruzen pretended not to hear him. Otherwise, the topic would never end. You beast. I'm starving too. Jiraiya also shouted, as expected, and quickly put the topic to the back of his head. While everyone was eating, they felt something was off. They all turned to see that Tsunade's hands were soaked with grease, as she ate messily. What the hell? Akaban looked her way, very heartbroken, watching as she spit out a shrimp shell. It is an insult to eat like that. Why is everyone looking at me like that? Tsunade asked. Come on, eat. This is so yummy. No, it's nothing. I'll ask them to fry up some more. Hiruzen didn't dare to interrupt her. He hasn't seen her eating before, but now, it looks too terrifying. He felt sorry for those shrimps. Sorry, I just haven't got a decent meal these days. Tsunade realized that she was eating too much, and bowed her head ashamedly. After non-stop training today, she was exhausted and everything she ate was to replenish her chakra, or so she said. Akaban had seen this before when he read the comic, but it turns out that the reality is completely different. He silently picked up a few shrimps, crabs, and such. According to what he knew, before he could finish eating his few food items, there would probably be no food left on the table. Glancing at them, Orochimaru and Jiraiya didn't know how serious this situation was, so they kept eating slowly, without any thoughts of snatching some food from Tsunade reach. Within seconds, the two of them were staring at the now empty table. Then, the three of them stared at Akaban in a daze. Because now, the only food left is the two uneaten crabs on Akaban's plate. Akaba. You know, we also need to eat and regain some energy. So share some of yours, will you? Tsunade begged Akaban with her puppy eyes, trying to make them look as cute as possible. Tsunade, you know there are other ways to get more energy besides eating, no need to take mine. Akaban guarded his crabs with a suspicious glare directed at the three younger ninjas eyeing his food. Ah, stingy. She didn't force him. She just ate too much and too fast for the chefs to catch up, so she'll have to suffer the consequences and wait. Her chakra was almost fully charged again anyway. So it wouldn't be too big of a deal if she waited a little longer. Plus, they weren't in a hurry, so she can eat as much as she wants and doesn't need to worry about it. New dishes are here. The chef announced and brought in some more food, still hot from the fryer. Jiraiya and Orochimaru were quick to react and stake claim on some of the food. Tsunade, spare us some this time. Even Sarutobi-sensei hasn't eaten yet. Hiruzen could only watch on amusedly at this group of genin. Akaban had finished his meal, but witnessing this scene, moved him a little. This meal is their last meal in Uzumaki village. Tomorrow morning, they will have to hit the road again. Although there were twists and turns, their journey to this village gave them some good memories. But Akaban felt a bit sad because his comics weren't sold out. Probably because his readers were only from children. And after all, the volumes published so far were mainly focused on Konoha, so villagers here couldn't relate to Naruto much. This made his points increase slower than he thought. It was almost at the same rate as when the book was first released. But since he was still receiving points from the shop in Konoha, and the points from Uzu Shogakure is just a bonus, this didn't affect him negatively in any way. Akaban sighed secretly and then thought about his current 100 points, and the 4,000-point ninjutsu he was saving up for. I still have a ways to go, huh? Just thinking about all the work that I need to do in order to reach 4,000 points gives me a headache. Akaban thought hard. He's starting to think that he needs a pen name. After all, he is an independent illustrator here and might be the first one. Thus, he can't affiliate himself with any village, or else he could be suspected as a spy or some kind of conspirator. More than that, I have to come up with a way to distribute the comics in other countries as well, such as a water country. Akaban, you will stay for a while. Once we're done here, you can take a rest. Hiruzen smoked his cigarette and waited until his students finished their meals to speak. As for the rest of you, you are dismissed. Yes, sensei. Orochimaru bowed, turned, and took the lead to leave. Instead of following after Orochimaru, Tsunade sneered, I hope it's nothing sketchy. Hiruzen's face blushed. Since he exposed the telescope, he has no confidence in front of Tsunade. Ah, don't think about it too much, it's just official business. Akaban kept his eyes and thoughts to himself, not interjecting into such a topic. Tsunade gave them both one last warning look, then turned to go back to her room. Jiraiya muttered something under his breath after hearing what Tsunade said, but didn't say anything and just turned to leave. After the three of them left, Hiruzen was silent for a moment, and then said, Tomiko will temporarily reside in your house from now on. I hope you can take good care of her. No problem, I've promised her that I'll give her the best life possible. Akaban said without hesitation. Hiruzen nodded in understanding and continued, Shikai is not at ease right now. With the current situation of this village, he won't be able to visit her for the time being. So he privately delivered the Kurama clan some benefits. The gift will be delivered tomorrow. What? Akaban was shocked to hear that. It sounds like you're going to give a marital contract to my parents. Are there any others besides Tomiko Uzumaki? I have told Tsunade about a few children, and the other 3 were accepted by our clan. Hiruzen said. All right, I have no issues with that. Is there anything else? I want to get to my bed as soon as possible. Akaban yawned, feeling sleepy. Akaban, I wonder what is the content of that painting before. Sensei, I don't know anything about it. Maybe Tsunade knows something. Akaban smiled and denied it. Although Jiraiya probably didn't notice it was Akaban who wrote it, as an experienced conversationalist and a Hokage, he can clearly see through Akaban. He must find another way to see the pages without getting caught, especially by Tsunade. When Akaban got up the next morning, he was baffled by the crowd of people outside the place he was staying at. To put it precisely, almost the entire village had gathered up. He went out to check what's going on, and everyone outside immediately took notice of him. There he is, Akaban from Kurama clan. The author of the drawings. Oh, I mean comic. My children love to read it, but alas, this makes me feel sad about their departure. But later when they go to Konoha, they might have a good time there with more comics to read. The parents' presence today was because they will send off their children. The atmosphere was a bit gloomy, but Akaban found out that the most popular topic among them was about him and his comics. Akaban looked at them curiously and a little sluggish, still having a pillow mark on his cheek from his peaceful sleep. Suddenly a figure squeezing out from the crowd ran towards him. Nii-san, shall we go to Konoha today? Tomiko's hands were full, holding what seemed like everything she owned. It seemed that her father didn't plan for her to return to the Uzumaki village in the future. Akaban pat her head, smiled lightly, and said, yes, we will. You go inside to play for a while. Okay. Tomiko responded nervously, but she wasn't timid. Where's your father? Akaban glanced around, looking for her father, including Hiruzen that he had also not seen among the large crowd. Dad is very busy, he said, so he can't come over to see me off. So I decided to take my things and go to see you, Nii-san. Tomiko looked so mature at such a young age. She seems to be very independent, different from other children. Moreover, today she is dressed beautifully, like a princess. Akaban felt something was missing, but couldn't say specifically, and couldn't recall for a while. Seeing Hiruzen, Akaban tried to think of what it was as he walked over to him. When he looked upon the way, he saw a few mothers coming to send their children, and he secretly thought in his heart, where is Tomiko's mother? I just realized I've never seen her before. During this time, he was too occupied to pay much attention to other issues, his thinking taking up his entire mind. All I remembered was I've been tricked by those 2 old men. Akaban still felt that he was pushed by their agenda, and got fooled. And there is no way that Tomiko only stays in Konoha for a while. With the current situation here, they are only sweet-talking their children to make them think that everything is okay. Well, I guess that's what a parent should do. To make sure that their children can live a peaceful life, even without them around. He fastened his pace and hurried to the place where he last saw Hiruzen. Well, everyone, you can all go back. Now that we have everyone here, we are ready to go. Hiruzen waved his hand and motioned to the parents to deliver their goodbye, which might be their last. Sensei, Akaban is here. Let's set off. It will take much more time to get to Konoha with all these civilian children. Orochimaru informed Hiruzen that everyone had gathered. Okay, let's set off. Kazuma left a farewell and shouted for the caravans to depart. From start to finish, he didn't give Akaban time to speak at all. Before he arrived, he saw Hiruzen only looking to the front without looking back. Ugh. Afterward, Akaban glanced at Tomiko, who was following with a flustered look. It's nothing. Akaban touched her head, and at the same time sighed lightly. Are you okay, Nii-san? Tomiko looked up at him, confused by the sudden contact. Yeah, let's go. Even if his blood was boiling, he can only appease Tomiko. Since her father hasn't come, he can't leave her halfway. On the way back, Hiruzen directly defeats all the enemies that try to ambush them. This is a warning: which invader ninja dares to fight with them, and they will taste the anger of the god of Shinobi. The First Ninja World War has just ended, and Hiruzen's reputation is at its peak, which reaches the level of Kage. Few ninjas dare to provoke him, so everyone who came with them in their caravan from Uzumaki village back to the Fire Country will be guaranteed safe and sound. However, when everyone arrived at the Fire Country's border and arrived at the side of the Fire Temple, Akaban saw a massive and splendid caravan. The eye-catching banner, clearly from an army escort, instantly made it clear at a glance who he was. That was the daimyo of the Fire Nation. Hiruzen was baffled. He knew that the daimyo would oppose his plan, but he never expected that the daimyo would be bothered to stop them himself. This is too sudden. When the two convoys met, Kazuma didn't dare to stand in the way, quickly withdrew to the sides, kneeling respectfully. Orochimaru and others stood aside, half kneeling respectfully. Greetings, Your Majesty. Hiruzen salutes. He may be Hokage of Konoha, but he was considered to be a subordinate of the daimyo. Oh, it's you, Hiruzen. I've just come from the Fire Temple. I didn't expect to meet you. It's been a long time since we last met. Why not come up for a cup of tea? Daimyo's voice came from the carriage. His voice was gentle and elegant and had a peculiar persuasive power that made people feel as if they were in a spring breeze. Akaban was afraid that these people from the Uzumaki village would unconsciously believe the Fire Daimyo's words just by listening to his voice. Thank you, Your Majesty. Hiruzen accepted and slowly approached the daimyo carriage. Before the daimyo's carriage took off, Hiruzen nodded and smiled at his own headguard. The headguard paused for a moment, then smiled and said, Hokage-sama, please. Then, he put down the wooden ladder, lifted the curtain, and motioned Hiruzen to step forward. Akaban watched the Hokage go up, then lowered his head in thought. Coincidence? He didn't believe it. It is by no means a coincidence. Perhaps it was a warning, or perhaps it was just a power move, but in any case, the daimyo's intentions were already obvious. But whatever he did, he just didn't want to make the relationship between the Fire Country and Konoha too rigid. After weighing the pros and cons, he chose to visit the Temple of Fire and meet Hiruzen by chance. Hiruzen, during this time you led a team for a mission. I heard about some of it. They said that it was quite thrilling. It made me worry about your students. I happened to see them all safe today, and I felt relieved. Back in the expensive-looking carriage, the daimyo poured a cup of tea and smiled gently. Thank you for your concern, Your Majesty. Fortunately, the students that I took were amongst the best, thus, they could protect themselves until I arrived. Hiruzen said. Is that so? The daimyo smiled with a carefree air around him. He looked back up to Hiruzen. Well, tell me then. Who are all these children you brought along? The patriarch of the Uzumaki clan took an interest in Akabane Kurama, and wants to arrange a marriage between the Kurama and Uzumaki clan, Your Majesty. Which is why he sent me and my students to escort the children to Konoha. Hiruzen continued to explain. Oh, speaking of Akabane Kurama. I have heard his name before. He was well known for his artwork. I wonder which of those students is he? Daimyo nodded his head with the same smile and looked curiously out the window of the carriage. Have you seen the eye-catchingly dressed, red-haired girl? The boy next to her is Akabane Kurama. Hiruzen pointed him out straightforwardly. Tomiko was clinging to Akabane. Although not to the point of being inseparable, in a crowd, the pair was outstanding enough to identify at a glance. The daimyo curiously glanced at them, chuckled, then retracted and said, the last time an Uzumaki married an outsider was with the Senju in exchange for a close bond with the Uzumaki village. This time it's the Kurama clan. It is a good match. Thanks for your praise, Your Majesty. Hiruzen said with a smile. Marriage is the rise and fall of clans. The Uzumaki clan has always been a good candidate for it, this time will be no exception, so I wouldn't worry about it. Alright, I still have to go to the temple to burn incense, so I won't delay Hokage's trip any longer. As the daimyo finished, he took one final sip of tea. Yes. Thanks for your time, Your Majesty. That's it guys. Hope you like the video. Like, share and subscribe the channel if you like it. And tell me in the comment section down below if you have any recommendation.